Chapter 1780. Are you sure the location of the divine ability relic is a swamp? Apart from that, are you sure you didn't exaggerate the description of the 4 wild beasts? Zhu Luqi, the palace master of Heaven Palace, asked for further confirmation as he stared at Xiao Dun with a burning gaze. Everyone, please search for the complete answer. Yes. At this moment, Xiao Dun also noticed the strange atmosphere. However, in the face of Zhu Luqi's confirmation, he nodded his head firmly. I'm sure I'm right. Moreover, I entered with Brother Zheng that time. Brother Zheng can testify to that. After he finished speaking, he looked at Qin Zheng, the Earth Palace's disciple. Speaking of which, he was the one who discovered the 2 divine ability relics that Xiao Dun knew about. He had also entered the 2 divine ability relics with Xiao Dun. It was only when they discovered they could not even pass the first trial that they decided to escape and look for a partner, who knew they would encounter 3 mystical Sky Mansion's disciples from the Zhao clan. In order to make an example out of them, the 3 mystical Sky Mansion's disciples even killed Qin Zheng's clone. The moment Xiao Dun's words left his mouth, the group of mystical Sky Mansion's high-ranking officials, including Ming Qing, the mansion master of mystical Sky Mansion, shifted their gazes to Qin Zheng in unison, giving him immense pressure. Qin Zheng did not dare to slack off and instantly nodded his head in affirmation. Xiao Dun is right. It's really that place. After receiving confirmation, the group of mystical Sky Mansion's high-ranking officials, including Ming Qing, the mansion master of mystical Sky Mansion, shook their heads. Zhao Ding, one of the vice mansion masters of mystical Sky Mansion, had a hint of gloating in his eyes. Lord Palace Master, is there something wrong? Xiao Dun could not help but ask Zhu Luqi when he noticed the strange atmosphere. Nothing's wrong. Zhu Luqi shook his head. In the history of our mystical Sky Mansion, many people have encountered the divine ability relic that you mentioned. However, nobody has ever passed the first trial of the divine ability relic. Moreover, very few people managed to escape from the divine ability relic alive. What? Upon hearing Zhu Luqi's words, many mystical Sky Mansion's disciples were shocked. Xiao Dun and Qin Zheng were also dumbfounded. They looked at each other and saw disbelief in each other's eyes. They had also passed the first checkpoint of that divine ability relic. It didn't seem to be that exaggerated, right? Lord Palace Master, Brother Zheng and I have also entered the divine ability relic before. Isn't the first trial just 4 wild beasts at the peak of the pristine saint stage? The difficulty is similar to the first trial of another divine ability relic, the 6 Halls Palace, that I've challenged. In the history of our mystical Sky Mansion, it shouldn't be impossible for someone to pass it, right? Xiao Dun couldn't help saying. Qin Zheng also nodded. As the person involved, he agreed with Xiao Dun. The 4 wild beasts you're talking about aren't the first trial of the divine ability relic. The first trial of the divine ability relic will only truly open after the 4 wild beasts are killed. Zhu Luqi shook his head and explained. After killing the 4 savage beasts, thousands of savage beasts similar to the 4 savage beasts will emerge from the surrounding swamps. It's a huge group of savage beasts. There are more than 10 of them at the refined saint stage or above. Their king, in particular, is a mastery refined saint stage wild beast whose strength is comparable to the peak of the refined saint stage. Based on their cultivation base alone, they don't seem to be very strong. They don't even have a powerhouse at the peak of the refined saint stage. However, the terrifying thing about them is their numbers. The weakest among the thousands of savage beasts is at the pristine saint stage. When they charge over, unless it's the territory of a powerhouse at the eminent saint stage or above, it's impossible to stop them. In the history of our mystical Sky Mansion, there was once a small group consisting of a Tao cultivator at the peak of the refined saint stage, a mastery refined saint stage martial cultivator, and 3 intermediate refined saint stage martial cultivators who entered the divine ability relic. In the end, all of them were annihilated. Under the onslaught of the thousands of savage beasts, they only managed to kill a few hundred savage beasts before they were annihilated. Zhu Luqi finished speaking in one breath. Gasp, 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 gasp. The moment Zhu Luqi finished speaking, the group of mystical Sky Mansion's disciples present on the scene gasped one after another. My goodness, What divine ability relic is that? The first trial is already so insane. How terrifying. Although Ling Tian is strong, he's only at the peak of the refined saint stage. I'm afraid he'll most likely die if he enters. With Ling Tian's strength, he might be able to enter an ordinary high-grade divine ability relic. However, it's obvious he won't be able to enter this high-grade divine ability relic. Such a terrifying high-grade divine ability relic. How terrifying must the divine ability contained inside be? Just the thought of it is enough to shock me. I'm sure the divine ability contained in that divine ability relic must be extraordinary. However, no matter how extraordinary it is, nobody will be able to obtain it. That's right. It's too difficult. After the group of mystical Sky Mansion's disciples regained their senses, they began to discuss among themselves. None of them felt Duan Lingtian would be able to pass the first trial of the divine ability relic. A rare smile appeared on the corner of Zhao Ji's mouth. It was a smile filled with schadenfreude. Those 4 wild beasts are just the prelude to the first trial of the divine ability relic? After listening to Zhu Luqi's words, Xiao Dun could not help but gasp. Then, he exchanged glances with Qin Zheng and saw the shock and horror in each other's eyes. Not even in their wildest dreams did they think the medium-grade divine ability relic in their eyes would actually be such a terrifying high-grade divine ability relic. Then, doesn't this mean senior brother Ling Tian is in great danger? The moment Xiao Dun thought of Duan Ling Tian, horror dawned on his face. He felt guilty. If he had known the divine ability relic was so dangerous, he would not have brought Duan Ling Tian there. After all, Duan Ling Tian was his benefactor, and he was not an ungrateful person. When did Ling Tian enter the divine ability relic? Zhu Luqi asked solemnly as he looked at Xiao Dun. At this moment, he could not help but feel worried about Duan Lingtian's safety. After all, the divine ability relic was the #1 forbidden area in the Saint Martial Secret Zone. It was a name that would cause one to tremble in fear. However, the most outstanding disciple among the younger generation in the Heaven Palace and the entire mystical Sky Mansion, Ling Tian, had actually entered the divine ability relic without even knowing it. How could he not be worried? In fact, the benefits Ling Tian obtained from the Saint Martial Secret Zone were extremely important to the mystical Sky Mansion. With Ling Tian's innate talent, as long as he did not die prematurely, he would definitely be able to break through to the Divine Saint stage in the future. Moreover, the possibility of him comprehending and mastering the divine ability he obtained from the Saint Martial Secret Zone was much higher than the others. Due to this reason, he did not want Duan Lingtian to be eliminated so early. About 10 days ago, Xiao Dun pondered for a moment before replying. 10 days ago? Upon hearing Xiao Dun's words, Gu Li, who had been standing quietly at the side, could not help but sigh in relief. He entered the divine ability relic 10 days ago, and he hasn't come out until now. Junior brother Ling Tian must have turned the misfortune into a blessing. Gu Li's thoughts were similar to most of the people's thoughts. It seems like Ling Tian has escaped. That's right. It has been 10 days, but he hasn't been eliminated. He must have escaped from the divine ability relic. Although the divine ability in the divine ability relic is good, it's impossible for Ling Tian to obtain it with his strength. Many mystical Sky Mansion's disciples discussed among themselves. All of them felt Duan Ling Tian must have survived the siege of the wild beasts and managed to escape from the divine ability relic. Previously, Xiao Dun was also worried. However, now that he had calmed down, he sighed in relief. It has been 10 days. Since senior brother Ling Tian hasn't come out, he must have left the divine ability relic. I hope he won't think I'm trying to harm him. Xiao Dun smiled wryly when he thought about this. It has been 10 days, and he hasn't been eliminated yet? Zhao Deng's expression was grave. It was obvious he had escaped from the divine ability relic alive, since he had not been eliminated even after 10 days. At this moment, the gloating smile on Zhao Ji's face froze as well. From the beginning until the end, nobody, including Ming Qing, the mansion master of Mystical Sky Mansion, thought Duan Lingtian would be able to pass the first trial of the divine ability relic, let alone obtain the divine ability inside. According to the Mystical Sky Mansion's history, the divine ability relic Duan Lingtian had entered was the #1 forbidden area in the St. Martial secret zone. The divine ability contained inside was also publicly acknowledged by the seniors in the mystical Sky Mansion's history as the #1 divine ability among the many divine abilities in the mystical Sky Mansion's St. Martial secret zone. That Ling Tian is really lucky to have entered the #1 divine ability relic in the mystical Sky Mansion's St. Martial secret zone. However, if his cultivation base is only at the peak of the refined saint stage, it'll be impossible for him to pass the first trial of the divine ability relic, let alone obtain the #1 divine ability. Although Kumi was from the Azure Cloud Mansion, he had also heard about the #1 divine ability in the mystical Sky Mansion's St. Martial secret zone. Even in the Azure Cloud Mansion's St. Martial secret zone, there was no divine ability relic that could compare to the divine ability relic in the mystical Sky Mansion's St. Martial secret zone. Naturally, regardless of whether it was the Azure Cloud Mansion or the Mountain Shade Black Market, although they knew the divine ability relic in the mystical Sky Mansion's St. Martial secret zone was extraordinary, they did not covet it at all. This was because they knew it was impossible for someone to obtain the divine ability from the divine ability relic in the WCI subterranean. Naturally, Duan Lingtian was unaware of what was happening outside. He also did not know the divine ability relic he was currently in was the #1 forbidden area in the mystical Sky Mansion's history that was publicly acknowledged as the #1 divine ability relic in the St. Martial secret zone. This divine ability relic was also the nightmare of the outstanding younger generation in the history of the mystical Sky Mansion. No one had ever been able to pass the first hurdle of this divine ability relic, let alone obtain the divine ability inside. Duan Lingtian was unaware of what was happening outside. Similarly, the people outside were unaware of what was happening inside as well. They also did not know Duan Lingtian had already passed the first and second trials of the divine ability relic that would cause one's expression to change. He had successfully walked out of the passage where the second trial was located and entered the third trial. Boom, 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 boom. Duan Lingtian held onto the colossal sword bell and passed through the area enveloped by the terrifying force that swept down like a waterfall. He successfully stepped onto the flat ground in front of him. Chapter 1781. After setting foot on the flat ground, Duan Lingtian turned around and looked at the vast energy that was pouring down from the sky like a waterfall. Please search to see the most complete. Damn! This energy was milky white in color. It emitted a terrifying aura that sent chills down one's spine. This energy was triggered after I walked out of the passage. Fortunately, the sun true origin in my body is comparable to the true origin of an ordinary early eminent saint stage powerhouse. Otherwise, even the defense formed by the true origin of a powerhouse at the peak of the refined saint stage might not be able to withstand its impact. Duan Lingtian felt slightly relieved. If a powerhouse at the peak of the refined saint stage wants to come here from the other end of the passage, he'd be injured even if he doesn't die. As someone who had experienced this before, Duan Lingtian was certain of this. I wonder what the third trial is, Duan Lingtian muttered to himself as he prepared to turn around. However, at this moment, his gaze landed on the vast milky white energy that was like a waterfall. A thought appeared in his mind involuntarily. This energy that's like a waterfall. Don't tell me it's the third trial in the abyssal swamp? In the beginning, Duan Lingtian did not think this energy was the third trial due to the lingering fear in his heart. However, now that he had calmed down, he could not help but guess. However, he began to hesitate. If it's really the third trial, isn't it a little too casual? Duan Lingtian's heart began to waver again. He could not be sure if this was the third trial or not. Forget it. Who cares if it's the third trial or not? No matter if it's the third trial or not, I'll still have to pass the remaining trials. I'll only be able to meet the owner of the voice after I pass the first 8 trials. The trial of the final trial must be related to him, since he said he'd wait for me at the final trial. When Duan Lingtian recalled the voice that reminded him when he passed the first trial, he felt excited again. If he could clear the 9 trials in the abyssal swamp, it would mean that he would be able to obtain the divine ability relic inside. Judging from the difficulty of the trials in the abyssal swamp, the divine ability relic inside would definitely be extraordinary. Duan Tian took a deep breath and slightly calmed his surging feelings before he turned around and faced the force that was like a waterfall with his back facing it. At that moment, Duan Tian finally had the time and thought to look at the world behind the tunnel. He was standing on the head of an arch bridge. On the other side of the arched bridge, there was a white and red mist, blocking Duan Tian's vision. He couldn't see what was on the other side. The arched bridge was very wide and very long. It was situated on a dry river, and there was not a single drop of water in the river. Let's go and take a look. Since he was already here, Duan Tian naturally couldn't turn back. He resolutely stepped onto the arch bridge and prepared to go to the other end. As soon as Duan Tian stepped onto the arch bridge, he felt an inexplicable pressure shrouding his body. Could this be the fourth trial? Duan Tian thought to himself as his heart jolted. As soon as this thought appeared in his mind, Duan Tian felt a violent tremor coming from beneath his feet. It was as though the earth was quaking and the mountains were swaying. At this moment, his first reaction was to step into the air to avoid this earthquake. However, he soon discovered that the pressure that shrouded his body was actually an extremely advanced flight prohibiting formation. It sealed his ability to fly, causing him to be unable to escape from the arched bridge beneath his feet. Pa, 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 pa. Along with the crisp sounds, Duan Tian discovered that there were terrifying cracks on the arched bridge. Based on the current situation, it wouldn't be long before the arched bridge broke. However, after looking at the dry river, Duan Tian did not hurry to leave. This was because he felt that it would not affect him even if the bridge broke. Boom! Another earth-shattering sound reverberated. This time, the arched bridge beneath Duan Tian's feet broke at an extremely fast speed. It broke so quickly? Seeing this, Duan Tian was shocked. The speed of the arched bridge breaking was beyond his expectations. Even if he had escaped earlier, it would have been difficult for him to escape before the arched bridge broke. As the arched bridge broke, Duan Tian released the Sun True Origin on the surface of his body to form the tie-in sword bell. After the arched bridge broke, the broken rocks fell in all directions. Many of the broken rocks shot toward Duan Tian, but they were all blocked by the tie-in sword bell. This bridge. It's strange that it broke. At the same time, Duan Tian's expression turned solemn. This was because he knew that everything in front of him was an illusion. There must be a reason why the arched bridge broke. Boom, 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 boom. Just as Duan Tian was about to reach the dried-up ditch, a series of loud noises came from behind him. It sounded like the sound of a flood. No, the loud noises that came from behind were even more terrifying than a flood. When Duan Tian turned his head subconsciously, he saw a vast power sweeping toward him from the milky white power that was like a waterfall. After the waterfall-like power filled the ditch between the passage and the arched bridge, it had nowhere to go and was rushing toward the dried-up ditch. At this time, Duan Tian, who was restricted by the flight-prohibiting formation, landed on the dried-up ditch. In an instant, he felt that the vibration coming from under his feet was even more terrifying than the previous earthquake. As for the vast and boundless milky white energy, wave after wave, each wave stronger than the last, swept towards him. The milky white power that rushed to the front was much more powerful than the waterfall-like power that Duan Tian had experienced before. Even Duan Tian's expression could not help but change when he sensed the aura emitted from the energy. This was because the power was so strong that even the tie-in sword bell that he condensed with the Sun True Origin might not be able to block it. If his original body was here, he could still rely on his original body's powerful physical strength. However, he was relying on his doppelganger. His doppelganger did not have the same physical strength as his original body, so he could only rely on his own Sun True Origin. I can't be drowned by this power. Otherwise, I'll definitely die. With that thought in mind, Duan Tian did not dare to stay any longer. He hurriedly ran toward the other end of the ditch. Boom! Just as Duan Tian's figure shot out, wave after wave of vast milky white energy that charged to the front finally fell like a flood and violently smashed into the dried river ditch. As soon as the vanguard arrived, the power behind arrived as well. In the blink of an eye, Half of the ditch was filled with the milky white power. After it was filled, it continued to sweep toward the other side of the ditch. It was as though it would not stop until it had filled the entire ditch. The milky white power that rushed to the front was squeezed and stacked by the power behind it. Its speed became faster and faster. After a short while, its speed surpassed Duan Lingtian's speed, and the distance between it and Duan Lingtian narrowed. T. Even without turning his head, Duan Lingtian could feel the power behind him closing in. His expression changed. If it was any other time, the bank in front of him would not be a big deal to him. He would feel that it was very close. However, at that moment, he felt that it was very, very far away. The word anxious was enough to describe Duan Lingtian's current feelings. Boom, 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 boom. The vast power that rushed to the front was getting faster and faster, and it was getting closer and closer to Duan Lingtian. In the end, it was only a short distance away from Duan Lingtian. At that moment, Duan Lingtian was still some distance away from the bank. If this continued, he would be drowned by the power behind him before he reached the bank. The vast power was only a short distance away from Duan Lingtian, and it easily destroyed the tie-in sword bell that Duan Lingtian had propped up. Let's go all out. After the tie-in sword bell was destroyed, Duan Lingtian also realized the danger. His handsome face turned serious, and the sun vital origin in his body surged out through his 99 saint veins at the fastest speed possible. Myriad sword territory. At the critical moment, Duan Lingtian formed his territory. As soon as the myriad sword territory appeared, it shrouded the milky white power within a 100-meter radius around Duan Lingtian. At the same time, under Duan Lingtian's control, the tens of thousands of sword lights in the myriad sword territory quickly gathered together to form a huge golden sword that was as bright as the sun. Duan Lingtian raised his hand and held the huge sword in his hand. At the same time, the remaining sun vital origin in his body surged into the huge sword as though it had gone mad. Seeing that the milky white power was about to engulf Duan Lingtian finally made his move. Buzz. The huge sword in his hand fell from the sky. Not only did it contain all the power that he could use, but it also contained the mysteries of the sovereign heart sword. Buzz, 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 buzz. As the huge sword swept across the sky, the void trembled. Because it was not swept out with the blade, the huge sword also encountered a great resistance. It was air resistance. However, even with air resistance, the speed of the huge sword was not slow at all. Finally, the gigantic sword collided with the energy that was charging at the forefront and almost drowned Duan Lingtian, and it ruthlessly slammed onto the sword. Wah! In a flash, when the huge sword came into contact with the power, Duan Lingtian felt a violent vibration from his hand. At the same time, he felt a sharp pain in the web between his thumb and forefinger. At the same time, a force was running around in his body like a headless fly, causing his chi and blood to surge and his internal injuries to spread. Boom! At the same time, the gigantic sword was finally shattered by the energy that was charging at the forefront. At the instant the gigantic sword shattered, a huge wave of energy surged out and ruthlessly slammed onto Duan Lingtian's body, sending him flying out from the impact. Duan Lingtian was blasted flying like an arrow that left the bow, and he narrowly landed on the riverbank ahead. Boom! As soon as Duan Lingtian landed on the riverbank, the energy that was charging at the forefront crashed onto the riverbank as well, and a loud explosion sounded like the roar of a furious dragon. Chapter 1782. Huff, 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 huff. Duan Lingtian, who sat on the riverbank, gasped heavily for air. His forehead was covered in sweat as he turned around to look at the vast milky white energy that filled up the dried river ditch. Almost. Just a little bit more and I would have been killed. Once he was killed, it would mean that he would be eliminated. It was not easy for him to come across such a divine ability relic, so he was naturally unwilling to be eliminated. To think that I thought that the milky white energy that swept down like a waterfall was the third trial in the abyssal swamp. Now it seems that what I just experienced was the real third trial. Previously, Duan Lingtian felt that the third trial should not be so simple. However, that waterfall-like energy could not be ignored. Therefore, he had always been puzzled, wondering if that energy was the third trial. And now, that power was connected to what he had just experienced, which made him realize that what he had just experienced was the real third checkpoint. The milky white energy, the broken arch bridge, the flight-prohibiting formation, and the dried river ditch formed the third trial. Soon after, Duan Lingtian discovered that the water level of the milky white energy in the river ditch was still rising. Although there was still a long way to go before it overflowed the riverbank, he quickly stood up after recovering some of his vitality. The fog disappeared? When Duan Lingtian turned around, he discovered that the fog on the other side had disappeared and was replaced by a mountain wall. A dead end? Duan Lingtian was dumbfounded when he saw the mountain wall blocking his way. Due to the attack of the milky white energy that swept down like a waterfall, the passage where the second trial was located was already submerged. It was already impossible for him to turn back. However, there was no turning back, and the road ahead was a dead end. Could it be that he could only stand here and wait for death? Boom, boom, boom. Just as Duan Lingtian was burning with anxiety, a series of loud sounds came from above his head. The noise that he usually heard was like the sound of nature when it entered Duan Lingtian's ears. Duan Lingtian immediately raised his head and discovered that the mountain wall above his head had a crack that allowed one person to pass through. A ray of light shone in from the inside as though it was guiding Duan Lingtian up. Since the flight-prohibiting formation only covered the river ditch, Duan Lingtian, who was on the riverbank, could freely fly in the air. Bang! Duan Lingtian stomped on the ground and flew up into the air through the crack on the mountain wall above his head. At the same time, Duan Lingtian looked up and discovered that the ray of light came from several hundred meters away. In other words, he still had to continue to fly several hundred meters before he could reach the source of light. It's good to be higher. It's good to be higher. When he thought about the milky white energy that was still pouring down like a waterfall below him, he was afraid that it would not take long before the entire space below him was flooded. Duan Lingtian was glad that the next trial was high enough and would not be flooded. As he flew up into the air, Duan Lingtian's heart sank when he thought about the thrilling scene earlier. The third trial is already so perverse. How terrifying would the 6 trials that await me be? With the lesson from the third trial, Duan Lingtian was slightly traumatized. He felt that the subsequent trials would be even more difficult. However, when Duan Lingtian was faced with the fourth trial, he discovered that the fourth trial was not as dangerous as the third trial. The fourth trial did not test one's strength, only their martial arts techniques. Martial arts techniques? It should be noted that although Duan Lingtian had abandoned most of the martial arts techniques that he used to cultivate, he was not weak in terms of techniques because of the Sovereign Heart Sword. Therefore, he easily passed the fourth checkpoint. After the fourth trial, it was time for the fifth trial. Similarly, the fifth trial did not test one's strength, but one's patience. 100,000 embroidery needles and a red line. That was the test of the fifth trial. It's really a test of patience. The corner of Duan Lingtian's mouth twitched when he saw the 100,000 densely packed embroidery needles before him. However, in the end, he still obediently picked up the only red thread in one hand and the embroidery needles in the other hand before he began to thread them. Only by threading all 100,000 embroidery needles through the red line would one be considered to have passed the fifth trial. Even though Duan Lingtian's cultivation base was extraordinary, he was still unable to use his strength when it came to threading the needles. He could only be like an ordinary person and obediently thread the red thread through the embroidery needles. Perhaps it was because they were afraid that the challenger would use his strength to cheat, so the holes of the embroidery needles were thinner than the red line. They could only be slowly squeezed in and could not be too fast. It took Duan Lingtian a few days just to pass the fifth trial. By the time he finished, his eyes were already blurred. If he had a choice, he would rather repeat the first trial. No, even if he could choose to repeat the third trial, he would still do so because the fifth trial was too difficult. It was even more tiring than the second trial. After passing the fifth trial, Duan Lingtian did not rush to the sixth trial. Instead, he rested on the spot. This was the first time he rested after entering the abyssal swamp. He had to rest. Now, as long as he opened his eyes, he would definitely see the bright embroidery needles and red lines. After resting for a day and a night, Duan Lingtian proceeded to the next trial. The sixth trial was still not a test of strength. Comprehension? The sixth trial was a test of the challenger's comprehension. What Duan Lingtian needed to do was to complete some incomplete martial tactic moves. Naturally, these martial tactic moves were only moves from the human rank Saint grade martial tactic. If it was in the past, it would be quite difficult for Duan Lingtian to do this. However, ever since he obtained the Sovereign Heart Sword and comprehended it to the second stage, Duan Lingtian's insight and understanding of the moves had also reached an extremely high level. Therefore, it was not difficult for him to complete some moves from the human rank Saint grade martial tactic. Therefore, Duan Lingtian easily passed the sixth trial. Next, it was the seventh trial. Why do I have a feeling that the 9 trials in the abyssal swamp are easier the further I go? Duan Lingtian could not help but have this thought when he recalled the previous few trials. Soon after, he found out what the 7th trial was about. Endurance? Running? When Duan Lingtian saw the content of the 7th trial, he smiled. It was another simple trial. However, when he finished reading the content, the smile on his face froze. I have to run around this pillar for 7 days and 7 nights. If I don't complete 1 million laps, I'll be considered to have failed the trial and will be sent out? Duan Lingtian was completely dumbfounded when he saw the gigantic pillar that required several dozens of people to wrap their arms around it. 7 days and 7 nights. 1 million laps. After walking around the pillar, a bitter smile appeared on Duan Lingtian's face. To complete 1 million laps around this pillar in 7 days and 7 nights. Even an ordinary powerhouse at the peak of the refined saint stage would find it difficult to do that. To think that I thought this trial would be easy. This is really a test of endurance. The bitter smile on Duan Lingtian's face became even more pronounced. However, he had no other choice. It was not impossible for him to complete 1 million laps around the pillar in 7 days and 7 nights. However, he would definitely be tormented during this process. Without a certain amount of patience, it would be impossible for him to persevere. Let's run. After taking a deep breath, Duan Lingtian raised his hand and pressed down on the protruding mechanism on the pillar. After activating the monitoring formation, he began to run around the pillar. With the help of the Sun True Origin, his speed was extremely fast. In just a blink of an eye, he had already completed a few laps around the pillar. The first 3 days were still fine. Duan Lingtian maintained his original speed. On the 4th day, even though Duan Lingtian kept encouraging himself, his speed still slowed down. Now that I've already passed the 7th trial, there are only 2 more trials left. If I can't pass this one, all my previous efforts would be wasted. The moment Duan Lingtian thought of this, he increased his speed again. However, after only a day, Duan Lingtian was completely immune to this method of raising his fighting spirit. The last 3 days were the most difficult days for Duan Lingtian. He even felt that the 7th trial was the most difficult of all the trials he had experienced in the abyssal swamp. Finally, after 7 days and 6 nights, Duan Lingtian completed 1 million laps around the pillar. After he was done running, he sat down on the ground, drenched in sweat. Although he was only a clone now, it was no different from a normal body. Would he still feel tired? He would sweat. Of course, the normal body referred to a normal person's body and not his actual body. If his current body was his actual body, it would not be a problem even if he ran for 10 days and 10 nights, let alone 7 days and 7 nights. It's been a long time since I've been so tired. No, I must rest for 2 days. No, 3 days. Although Duan Lingtian said he would rest for 3 days after he was done running, after resting for half a day and regaining his strength, he resolutely made his way to the 8th trial. The 8th checkpoint was located in a vast underground palace. After entering, one could clearly feel an ancient and weathered aura assaulting their faces. In an instant, it was as if they had been brought to an ancient era that was incomparably distant from the present day. The most eye-catching thing about this underground palace was the rows of statues that were erected neatly in the distance. These statues were of armored soldiers. There were infantrymen, spearmen, and even cavalrymen. It's quite similar to the terracotta army from my previous life. Are these statues the test of the 8th trial? The moment Duan Lingtian thought of this, he immediately became alert. Chapter 1783. The rows of soldier statues looked majestic from afar. Duan Lingtian glanced at them and knew the number of these soldier statues. There were at least 1,000 of them. Could it be that the test of the 8th checkpoint is to destroy them? With doubts in his heart, Duan Lingtian slowly approached the soldier phalanx in front of him. The phalanx formed by thousands of soldier statues gave Duan Lingtian an inexplicable sense of oppression. Duan Lingtian did not know how to describe this feeling of oppression. Gradually, the distance between Duan Lingtian and the soldier phalanx grew closer and closer. 500 meters, 300 meters, 100 meters. Just when he was 100 meters away from the soldier phalanx, Duan Lingtian seemed to have noticed something. He frowned slightly and stopped moving. At the same time, Duan Lingtian clearly saw that the soldier phalanx 100 meters away seemed to have come to life in an instant. Chi, 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 pa, pa, pa. A crisp sound filled the vast underground palace in the blink of an eye. The stone skin on the thousands of soldier statues began to fall off, revealing their true appearances. Soldiers of flesh and blood appeared before Duan Lingtian's eyes one by one. Of course, they only looked like flesh and blood. Their eyes were blank and lifeless. They did not look like living people at all. What's going on? Seeing this scene, Duan Lingtian was stunned. He did not expect these soldier statues to turn into real people. Indeed, the thousands of soldiers standing 100 meters away from Duan Lingtian looked like real people at first glance. Other than their lifeless eyes, they were no different from ordinary people. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At this moment, a gust of chilly wind blew in the vast underground palace. The chilly wind was extremely strange. Even though Duan Lingtian was not a coward, he still felt a chill run down his spine. These soldiers, at the same time. When Duan Lingtian's gaze fell on the soldier phalanx again, he discovered that the originally lifeless eyes of the thousands of soldiers had now lit up with an eerie green light. As their eyes glowed with green light, they were completely alive. Thump, 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 thump. After coming back to life, the thousands of soldiers quickly moved and arranged themselves into a more orderly square formation. They were very self-aware and did not need anyone to command them. Kill, kill, kill. After rearranging into a square formation, the thousands of soldiers cried out in unison. Their voices shook the sky and the sound waves squeezed the empty space, causing it to vibrate and form ripple-like ripples that spread out. At this moment, even Duan Lingtian felt his eardrums vibrate and the blood in his body churn. However, he wasn't in the mood to pay attention to that now. This was because he realized that when the thousands of soldiers shouted, their gazes were also locked onto him. Even though Duan Lingtian had experienced a lot of ups and downs along the way, he still couldn't help but feel a little scared when he was stared at by thousands of pairs of glowing green eyes. Kill! Another cry rang out in unison. In the next instant, the thousands of soldiers made their move at the same time and charged toward Duan Lingtian. Several hundred cavalrymen took the lead and charged toward Duan Lingtian. As for the infantrymen and spearmen, they leaped into the air and flew toward him. The sabers and spears in their hands were filled with vast true origin as they shot out like a dragon out of its cave. Their target was Duan Lingtian. Several hundred infantrymen and several hundred spearmen were equivalent to several hundred sabers and several hundred spears. They traversed the sky and charged toward Duan Lingtian. The thousands of soldiers' eyes glowed with green light, so no one could see the changes in their eyes. However, based on their current stance, it was obvious they would not give up until they killed Duan Lingtian. Soon after, the thousands of soldiers surrounded Duan Lingtian and charged toward Duan Lingtian. They're all at the peak of the pristine saint stage. At the same time, Duan Lingtian, who had activated his divine eye and extended his divine consciousness out, quickly discovered the cultivation base of the thousands of soldiers around him. All of them were at the peak of the pristine saint stage without exception. In the beginning, Duan Lingtian did not pay much attention to these soldiers who were only at the peak of the pristine saint stage. However, horror dawned on Duan Lingtian when his colossal sword bell took on the combined attack of more than 30 soldiers. How's this possible? Aren't their cultivation bases only at the peak of the pristine saint stage? The colossal sword bell that he had activated with all his might almost crumbled under the combined attack of more than 30 soldiers. If there were 10 more soldiers joining forces, my colossal sword bell would have crumbled earlier. The moment Duan Lingtian thought of this, he began to panic. He realized he had underestimated his opponent. After taking a deep breath, Duan Lingtian moved and dodged the attacks of the group of soldiers. He tried his best to calm himself down. After calming down, Duan Lingtian observed the thousands of soldiers who surrounded him. He noticed that although the soldiers' movements seemed chaotic, there was a certain mystery behind it. The formation they're in is not an ordinary formation. Their formation seems to be able to link the strength of the people around them to advance and retreat at the same time. I knew it. As the 8th and second to last trial in the Abyssal Swamp, how could it be so simple? These thousands of soldiers are much more difficult to deal with compared to the group of wild beasts in the first trial. Although the group of wild beasts in the first trial had a tacit understanding with each other, they were not organized at all. Although the thousands of soldiers in front of him were only at the peak of the pristine saint stage, each of their movements contained the mystery of the formation. It was as though they were always in a group with their companions. Since these soldiers were irrational, there was no issue of trust in their cooperation. Due to this reason, they were even more terrifying when they joined forces. If the group of wild beasts in the first trial encountered these soldiers, I'm afraid these soldiers would only need to charge a few times to annihilate the group of wild beasts. Duan Lingtian did not doubt this at all. At this moment, Duan Lingtian no longer dared to be careless. He no longer dared to underestimate the group of soldiers in front of him, even though each of them only had a cultivation base at the peak of the pristine saint stage. Duan Lingtian would be able to easily deal with martial cultivators at the peak of the pristine saint stage who were in a state of disunity, even if there were 2,000 or 3,000 of them. However, in the face of these 1,000 soldiers who had joined forces, Duan Lingtian could only choose to dodge and look for an opportunity to attack. Calm down. Calm down. Duan Lingtian knew very well that he would only have a chance to defeat the 1,000 soldiers in front of him if he remained calm. Put aside Duan Lingtian's past life, even in this life, he had also fought his way here from a remote place on the mortal continent, the Cloud Continent. Due to this reason, his battle experience was definitely not something the younger generation who was born and raised in the Dao Martial Saintland could compare to. Due to this reason, he quickly found a way to deal with the 1,000 soldiers in the 8th trial. Calm down. Defeat them one by one. Of course, while those 2 points sounded simple, they were actually extremely difficult to accomplish. Time continued to pass by quietly. Duan Lingtian's body moved like the wind as he dodged the attacks of the 1,000 soldiers. He secretly activated his strange pupil in an attempt to find the weakness of these soldiers in front of him. Once he found a weakness, he would attack at lightning speed and not give his opponent a chance to catch his breath. However, it was also thanks to Duan Lingtian's strength that was comparable to an early eminent saint stage martial cultivator that he could rely on the strength of the Sun True origin. Otherwise, even a martial cultivator at the peak of the refined saint stage would not be able to dodge the attacks of the 1,000 soldiers in front of him. Finally, after half an hour, Duan Lingtian discovered the weakness of an independent small square formation. There were more than 30 people in this small square formation. The attack that Duan Lingtian had suffered earlier was a surprise attack from such a small square formation. In fact, the weakness of this small square formation was not obvious at all. If it was not for the fact that Duan Lingtian had activated his strange pupil, he would not have discovered it. I'll start with all of you. Duan Lingtian's eyes gleamed coldly. After being chased for half an hour without being able to fight back, he was already furious. Now that he had discovered the weakness of the small square formation, it was only natural that he would not let it go. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. With a raise of his hand, Duan Lingtian's Sun True origin surged out and transformed into a 3-foot-long blade. The 3-foot-long blade emitted a golden luster. From afar, it looked like a scorching sun in the sky. At this moment, this scorching sun was tightly held in Duan Lingtian's hand. Whoosh! The weakness of the small square formation grew bigger and bigger under the gaze of Duan Lingtian's strange pupil. At the same time, the sun's true origin on his body also increased greatly. Whoosh! Immediately after, Duan Lingtian rushed into the small square formation at an extremely fast speed, exposing his entire body to the 30 soldiers in the small square formation. His actions naturally attracted the attention of over 30 soldiers, and he became the target of public criticism. Kill! The 30 soldiers shouted loudly. The swords and spears in their hands swept out like lightning. Although they came from different directions, when they struck out, it seemed like they were striking the same spot. The attacks of more than 30 soldiers seemed to be perfectly fused together in a mysterious way. Duan Lingtian, who was trapped in the small square formation, faced the attacks of the 30 soldiers. His expression did not change. The 3-foot-long blade in his hand glowed with sword light and shot out at an even faster speed, directly piercing between the eyebrows of one of the soldiers. This soldier was also the one who had discovered the weakness of the small square formation. Poochie! Where the sword light passed, a hideous bloody hole appeared between the soldier's eyebrows. In the next moment, the expected bloody scene did not appear. The soldier who had his eyebrows pierced and the 7-foot-long spear in his hand were vaporized at the same time. The combined attacks of the 30 soldiers were greatly weakened after killing one soldier. Duan Lingtian raised the Taiyan sword bell and completely blocked the attacks. He did not encounter too much pressure. Because of the death of that soldier, the remaining group of soldiers showed even more flaws. Duan Lingtian did not even need to use his strange pupil to discover these weaknesses. Whoosh! 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 Chapter 1784. After annihilating a small square formation, Duan Lingtian retreated in time and gave way to the other square formations of various sizes that rushed over to support him. Then, Duan Lingtian began to use his speed advantage to wander around the square formations of various sizes. He could not interfere, and these soldiers could not touch him as well. Duan Lingtian's current speed was comparable to an early eminent saint stage martial cultivator. These soldiers could not catch up to him at all. Under such circumstances, Duan Lingtian repeated his old trick and destroyed the remaining square formations one by one. After spending half a day, he finally destroyed all the square formations. I finally passed. Although Duan Lingtian had successfully passed the 8th checkpoint, he was sweating profusely. His tensed mind had also relaxed. Earlier, when faced with the attacks of the square formations of various sizes, he did not dare to be distracted at all. Huff, 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 huff. Duan Lingtian bent down and placed his hands on his knees as he gasped for breath. His face was drenched in sweat, and it fell like rain. At this moment, he could finally heave a sigh of relief. Ever since he entered the abyssal swamp until now, this was the first time Duan Lingtian was physically and mentally exhausted. For this reason, he planned to continue to the next checkpoint after resting for a day and 2 nights. In fact, after he passed the 8th checkpoint, the entrance to the 9th checkpoint had already appeared. After I passed the first checkpoint, the voice that reminded me said he'll wait for me at the last checkpoint. In other words, he'll be waiting for me at the 9th checkpoint. Who's the owner of that voice? Duan Lingtian's heart was filled with curiosity. At the same time, he also stepped into the entrance to the 9th checkpoint. The entrance to the 9th checkpoint was a circle of light. When Duan Lingtian walked in, it was as though he had touched something. His surroundings began to undergo a drastic change. The vast underground palace gradually disappeared in front of Duan Lingtian's eyes. Duan Lingtian could see everything clearly. Sure enough, everything is a mirror image in the illusory matrix. I wonder what I will face in the 9th level. After the underground palace disappeared before Duan Lingtian's eyes, he was surrounded by a vast expanse of white. Finally, after a period of time, Duan Lingtian discovered that he had appeared in a vast battle arena. Around the battle arena were rows of spectator seats. However, there was not a single person in the spectator seats. This is the 9th checkpoint? Looking at the arena beneath his feet, Duan Lingtian revealed a look of surprise. Who am I supposed to fight with? Since there was an arena, Duan Lingtian could naturally guess what kind of test he would face in the 9th checkpoint. It would definitely give him an opponent, and then let him fight with his opponent. Could it be the owner of that old voice? Even Duan Lingtian did not know why such a thought suddenly emerged in his mind. Once the thought arose, it was difficult to suppress it. The reason why such a thought emerged was that after he passed the first checkpoint, the voice that came into his ear once said that it would wait for him at the last checkpoint. Although I don't know who he is, since he can send me a voice transmission like that, he must not be an ordinary person. If my opponent is him, I'm afraid I'll be doomed. Thinking of this, Duan Lingtian had a bitter smile on his face. Although his current strength was comparable to the early Great Sage Realm Martial Cultivator, it was still not enough if he encountered the mysterious old man. While Duan Lingtian was smiling wryly, the space in front of him began to tremble before it quickly tore open. Immediately afterward, an old cameraman walked out of the gap in the void, stood in the air, and confronted Duan Lingtian. This was an old man with white hair and a ruddy complexion. He wore a loose robe, but it could not hide his sturdy body. The old man was nearly 2 meters tall. As burly as he was, he stood there like a small tower. At this moment, the old man was looking at Duan Lingtian with a smile on his face. His pair of turbid eyes quickly lit up. "Little fellow, you're very good to be able to make it here." Just when Duan Lingtian noticed the old man spoke. His voice was exactly the same as the voice that transmitted to Duan Lingtian previously. Therefore, Duan Lingtian was completely certain that the old man in front of him was the old man who reminded him previously. Senior. Facing the old man, Duan Lingtian did not dare to be negligent. Since the old man could appear here, even if it was just a mirror image in the illusory formation, it was still worthy of his respect. How could an old man who appeared in the form of a mirror image be an ordinary person? However, the old man seemed to be a little slow. He did not react to Duan Lingtian's greeting. Instead, he continued to say, "I told you earlier that I'll wait for you at the last checkpoint. Now, you're finally here. As long as you can defeat me, my elementary devouring tactic will be yours. If you can't defeat me, then I can only say that you're not fated with the elementary devouring tactic." The old man continued to say. At this moment, Duan Lingtian also realized that although the old man in front of him seemed to be sentient, he was actually acting according to a template. This could be seen from the fact that he did not seem to be able to see Duan Lingtian's greeting. The old man's purpose of existence was to test Duan Lingtian. He did not possess sentience, so he could not communicate with Duan Lingtian. Due to this reason, the old man did not intentionally give in to Duan Lingtian. The elementary devouring tactic he mentioned, could it be the divine ability recorded in the divine ability relic in the abyssal swamp? Duan Lingtian's breathing quickened when he thought about the old man's words. Why did he have to go through so much trouble along the way? It was all for the sake of the divine ability. Moreover, the difficulty along the way was completely incomparable to the divine ability relic he had been to before. Due to this reason, he was 100% certain the divine ability recorded in this divine ability relic was definitely not an ordinary divine ability. Naturally, all of this was merely Duan Lingtian's speculation. Currently, Duan Lingtian was unaware that the divine ability relic he was exploring, the abyssal swamp, was the most mysterious divine ability relic in the mystical Sky Mansion's St. Martial Secret Zone. It was also known as the #1 divine ability relic. Although the people in the mystical Sky Mansion did not know what kind of divine ability was recorded in this divine ability relic, based on its difficulty, the divine ability recorded in it was definitely not simple. Due to this reason, it was also known as the #1 divine ability. Defeat him? When Duan Lingtian regained his senses and looked at the old man again, he felt as though a bucket of cold water had been poured over his head, extinguishing all of his enthusiasm. Could he defeat this old man? Even if this old man was just a mirror image, he was definitely not someone he could defeat. At this moment, Duan Lingtian's heart was filled with bitterness. Earlier, he had activated his divine eye to probe the old man, but when his divine consciousness came into contact with the old man, it was as though it had sunk into the sea. There was no response at all. Based on this, one could see how profound the old man's cultivation base was. However, when the old man spoke again, the bitterness in Duan Lingtian's heart disappeared. I'll suppress and maintain my cultivation base at the same level as yours. Since your cultivation base is at the early refined saint stage, I'll fight you with my cultivation base at the early refined saint stage. However, other than maintaining my cultivation base at the same level as yours, I'll also use the elementary devouring tactic. These were the old man's words. Early refined saint stage? Fight him with his cultivation base at the early refined saint stage? Upon hearing the old man's words, Duan Lingtian was amused. He almost laughed out loud. Wait a minute. If he can imitate the Sun true origin, his true strength would be comparable to an early eminent saint stage martial cultivator. Coupled with the divine ability, the elementary devouring tactic, it's impossible for me to be a match for him. The moment Duan Lingtian thought of this, the joy that had just risen in his heart vanished completely. However, in the next moment, when he saw the true origin on the surface of the old man's body, the fire of hope reignited in his heart. This was because the true origin on the surface of the old man's body was not the Sun true origin. It was the true origin of an ordinary, early refined saint stage powerhouse. If it's an ordinary person, it's impossible for him to be a match for an opponent with the same cultivation base who can cast the elementary devouring tactic. However, this is nothing to me. Duan Lingtian believed, even if the elementary devouring tactic the old man cast was a high-grade divine ability, it was impossible for the old man's true origin at the early eminent saint stage to be a match for him whose strength was comparable to an early eminent saint stage martial cultivator. His strength did not rely much on his cultivation base. Instead, it relied more on the uniqueness of the Sun true origin. The Sun true origin at the early refined saint stage was comparable to the true origin of an ordinary early eminent saint stage powerhouse. The true origin of an ordinary early refined saint stage powerhouse would only be crushed when faced with the Sun true origin that had the same cultivation base. It seems that this so-called final hurdle is nothing to me. Duan Lingtian was in a good mood. Initially, he thought the final trial would be extremely difficult. Who knew things would take such a turn for the better? If it was an ordinary person who came here and encountered such a situation, perhaps he would have a headache. However, Duan Lingtian did not have a headache at all. Instead, he was secretly delighted. Although his strength is lower than mine by an entire stage, he knows how to use the elementary devouring tactic. The elementary devouring tactic is most likely a high-grade divine ability. Moreover, it's very likely that it's more powerful than ordinary high-grade divine abilities. Due to this reason, I can't be careless even if I'm 90% confident I'll win this battle. The 9th trial before him was also the final trial in the Abyssal Swamp. He could not afford to make any mistakes. For this reason, Duan Lingtian was extremely solemn. He did not dare to underestimate his opponent at all. If he were to fail miserably, who would he cry to? After a while, the true origin on the old man's body skyrocketed and spread out. In just a blink of an eye, he made his move. With just a flash, he charged toward Duan Lingtian menacingly. What a fast speed! Duan Lingtian was shocked. The speed the old man displayed was much faster than an ordinary early refined saint stage martial cultivator. In fact, it was not much slower than an intermediate refined saint stage martial cultivator. His movement technique is very unusual. Soon after, Duan Lingtian discovered this. Chapter 1785. It made sense when he thought about it. Since this old man was related to the divine ability relic, the Abyssal Swamp, how could he be an ordinary person? Even if such a person suppressed his cultivation base to the same level as Duan Lingtian, he still had an advantage. His battle experience and martial tactics were not something an ordinary early refined saint stage martial cultivator could compare to. At this moment, Duan Lingtian was most relieved the old man before him could not replicate his Sun true origin. In fact, the reason he was able to rely on his strength that was equivalent to an early eminent saint stage martial cultivator's clone to make his way here was due to the extraordinary Sun true origin. In terms of strength, the Sun true origin at the early refined saint stage was not inferior to the ordinary true origin at the early eminent saint stage. He's accelerating again. When Duan Lingtian dodged the old man's attack in time, he was surprised to see the old man's speed had increased again. Through the divine consciousness that Duan Lingtian released, he was certain the old man's true origin did not change at all. It was still the ordinary true origin of an early refined saint stage powerhouse. The reason his speed was slightly faster was due to the old man's movement technique. It was an extremely ethereal and swift movement technique. Even the movement technique in the heaven rank advanced saint-grade martial tactic that has been cultivated to the highest stage wouldn't be as fast as this. Duan Lingtian could not help but click his tongue when he saw the old man's current speed. Even an ordinary intermediate refined saint stage powerhouse might not be able to match the old man's current speed. If Duan Lingtian did not have the Sun true origin and was only an ordinary early refined saint stage powerhouse, he would not have any advantage at all in terms of speed. The attack the old man cast with just a raise of his hand was extremely powerful as well. It was even more powerful than the attack of an ordinary intermediate refined saint stage martial cultivator. However, his speed was suppressed by Duan Lingtian. Since he could not touch Duan Lingtian, it was useless no matter how powerful his attack was. Although Duan Lingtian's cultivation base was only at the early refined saint stage, with the Sun true origin, his speed was comparable to an early eminent saint stage martial cultivator. Faced with the old man whose strength was comparable to an intermediate refined saint stage martial cultivator, he did not feel any pressure at all. It's also because I encountered this obstacle. If an ordinary martial cultivator or Dao cultivator encountered this obstacle, it would be almost impossible for them to pass. Duan Lingtian knew very well that he was the only one who could easily pass this hurdle. If it was another early refined saint stage martial cultivator who did not have the Sun true origin to rely on, he would have been defeated long ago. Why isn't he moving? At the same time, Duan Lingtian noticed that the old man had suddenly stopped chasing after him. He looked at Duan Lingtian blankly and said, "Little fellow, it seems like you're the person I've been waiting for. If you can still defeat me after I cast the elementary devouring tactic, I'll teach you the elementary devouring tactic." Duan Lingtian didn't pay much attention to the old man's words. However, when the old man reached the end of his sentence, Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed. "I will teach you the elementary devouring technique." Based on the old man's words, did it mean the elementary devouring tactic was his divine ability? Don't tell me this abyssal swamp was left behind by this senior? The moment Duan Lingtian thought of this, his heart began to beat faster. Although he had entered 3 divine ability relics previously, there was no one like the old man in front of him at all. They did not even appear, let alone communicate with him. However, not only did this old man appear in the abyssal swamp, but he even said he would teach him the elementary devouring tactic if he could defeat him. How could he not let his imagination run wild? While Duan Lingtian was lost in his thoughts, he was shocked to discover the Sun true origin in his body began to leak out without him deliberately controlling it. Fortunately, he managed to react in time and stopped it. Otherwise, a lot of the Sun true origin in his body would have leaked out. When Duan Lingtian regained his senses, he noticed the old man's robe was bulging. The air around his body began to vibrate before it finally transformed into a huge ripple. The ripple continued to spread out and formed a huge whirlpool. The whirlpool was constantly absorbing the heaven and earth spirit energy in the surroundings into the old man's body. His aura seems to be getting stronger. At the same time, Duan Lingtian could clearly sense the old man's aura was constantly rising with his divine consciousness. In the end, the air around him seemed to have stagnated, and his aura finally stopped rising. At the same time, the whirlpool that shrouded him disappeared as well. Whoosh! As the air vibrated, a territory rapidly formed in a 100-meter radius around the old man. However, the true origin that formed the territory was not the true origin of an early refined saint stage powerhouse. It was the true origin of a powerhouse at the peak of the refined saint stage. Naturally, it could not be compared to the true origin of a powerhouse at the peak of the refined saint stage, since the true origin of the old man's territory was very unstable. It was unstable because it was forcefully raised. In essence, it was still the true origin of an early refined Saint stage powerhouse. This is the elementary devouring tactic? Duan Ling Tian couldn't help but gasp when he saw this, and his heart trembled. The elementary devouring tactic allowed an early refined Saint stage martial cultivator to forcefully raise his true origin to the peak of the refined Saint stage. This divine ability was too heaven-defying, right? The old man's territory was dark. Pythons that were entangled in blood mist would occasionally jump out of the territory. After rolling a few times, they would hide in the territory again. When Duan Lingtian looked around, he could clearly see there were thousands of pythons that appeared in the old man's territory at the same time. The thousands of pythons were entangled in the blood mist as they rolled around in the territory. They would appear and hide at times, giving off an eerie and terrifying feeling. Whoosh! The sound of wind being torn apart rang in the air. Duan Lingtian saw the old man charging toward him rapidly after he had consolidated his territory. As for the unstable true essence that permeated his body, it also showed signs of weakening during this process, although this trend was very slow. It seems like the true origin raised by the elementary devouring tactic won't last for long. He wants to kill me in one go while his true origin is still at the peak of the refined saint stage. The moment Duan Lingtian thought of this, he began to make his move. One must admit the old man's speed with his true origin at the peak of the refined saint stage was very fast. It was even faster than 99% of martial cultivators at the peak of the refined saint stage. However, he still could not catch up to Duan Lingtian, whose speed was comparable to an early eminent saint stage martial cultivator. Although his speed was comparable to an intermediate refined saint stage martial cultivator with his true origin at the early refined saint stage. However, with his true origin at the peak of the refined saint stage, it was difficult for him to move at the speed of an early eminent saint stage martial cultivator. Although the peak of the refined saint stage and the early eminent saint stage were similar to the early refined saint stage and the intermediate refined saint stage, they were only one level apart. However, the latter was a cultivation level within a major stage, while the former was a cultivation level that was separated by a major stage. They could not be mentioned in the same breath at all. The difference between the latter and the former was as vast as 1,000 miles. Due to this reason, even if the old man had raised his true origin to the peak of the refined saint stage with the elementary devouring tactic, he still could not touch Duan Lingtian. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. Naturally, the old man was not fighting alone. The thousands of pythons in his territory that were shrouded in blood mist quickly joined the battle and surrounded Duan Lingtian. Territory? Faced with the attack from the old man's territory, Duan Lingtian smiled faintly as the sun true origin shrouding his body spread out. 10,000 swords territory. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. Wherever the 10,000 sword rays passed, the pythons were completely annihilated. The old man's territory was also destroyed by the 10,000 swords territory. Territory relied on true origin. Duan Lingtian's true origin was the sun true origin that was comparable to the true origin of an early eminent saint stage powerhouse. The territory consolidated from such true origin easily crushed the territory consolidated from the old man's true origin at the peak of the refined saint stage. It's getting weaker? At the same time, Duan Lingtian discovered the old man's true origin had weakened to the mastery refined saint stage. It's time to end this. With a flash of brilliance in his eyes, Duan Lingtian's 10,000 swords territory suddenly shrank. 10,000 sword rays gathered in his hand and merged into a heavy sword. From afar, it looked like a dazzling sun. Without warning, Duan Lingtian made his move. The gigantic sword that was as bright as the sun appeared in his hand. Faced with the old man who had cast the divine ability, the elementary devouring tactic, again in an attempt to raise his true origin to the peak of the refined saint stage, the gigantic sword whistled in the air and landed on his body mercilessly. The old man's true origin had finally returned to the peak of the refined saint stage after much difficulty. However, faced with Duan Lingtian's sword that contained the sun true origin and the profundity of the sovereign heart sword, His true origin crumbled immediately. Even his body was vaporized and disappeared before Duan Lingtian's eyes. Who would have thought that the final hurdle would be the easiest? With just a thought from Duan Lingtian, the gigantic sword in his hand dispersed. At the same time, a faint smile appeared on the corner of his mouth as he slowly descended from the sky. Indeed, ever since he entered the abyssal swamp, every step he took until he reached the 9th trial was extremely difficult. As the last trial, the 9th trial was, naturally, the most difficult one in Duan Lingtian's opinion. Before he faced it, although he appeared to be indifferent on the surface, he was extremely perturbed in his heart. This was because he didn't know if he could successfully pass through the final hurdle and obtain the divine ability within the abyssal swamp. However, he had passed the last trial. Moreover, he had an absolute advantage and easily passed the trial. Of course, the reason for this was also because of the Sun true origin in his body. If it was another person, it would be impossible for them to pass the trial. This had been mentioned many times before. This abyssal swamp is really insane. However, the divine ability, the elementary devouring tactic, is even more insane. Chapter 1786. Currently, Duan Lingtian had passed all the trials in the abyssal swamp, the divine ability relic. This meant he would obtain the divine ability in the abyssal swamp. The divine ability in the abyssal swamp was the elementary devouring tactic. Don't tell me the elementary devouring tactic is also recorded in a stone tablet like the divine ability, the 6 harmonies golden body, that I obtained previously? The moment Duan Lingtian thought of this, he stared at the sky, waiting for a crack to appear in the sky and the stone tablet that contained the divine ability to appear. However, after waiting for a long time, nothing happened. What's going on? Duan Lingtian was dumbfounded. He did not know what was going on at all. Where's that old fella? Didn't he say he'll teach me the elementary devouring tactic as long as I defeat him? Is he messing with me? Duan Lingtian was really anxious now. He had even changed the way he addressed the old man. Earlier, he had called him senior, but now he was calling him old fella. Old fella, don't tell me you're trying to go back on your word? Duan Lingtian shouted as he stood in the fighting ring. At the same time, he looked around. Duan Lingtian's voice was very loud. It contained the Sun true origin and formed a sound wave that caused the surrounding air to ripple. When the air rippled, Duan Lingtian could clearly see a figure appearing in the sky. It was the old man he had killed earlier. Just when Duan Lingtian was starting to get impatient, the old man had finally appeared. Little fella. The old man had an amiable smile on his face. Congratulations on passing all the trials in the abyssal swamp. Next, I'll pass all the information about the elementary devouring tactic to you. Once your cultivation base has risen to the divine saint stage, you'll be able to officially cultivate the elementary devouring tactic. Hearing the old man's words, Duan Lingtian's eyes lit up. Even though he knew the old man would ignore him, he still thanked him. Thank you, senior. You've already seen the elementary devouring skill in the last trial. I'm sure you have a basic understanding of it. The elementary devouring skill is a divine ability that can devour all energy around you. You can even devour the energy of your opponent. Of course, if your opponent is much stronger than you, you won't be able to devour their energy because they can completely resist the devouring power of your elementary devouring technique, the old man said. Hearing this, Duan Lingtian's eyes flashed as he recalled his previous experience. Devouring the opponent's power? Unable to devour because the opponent was too strong? Resist the devouring power? At this moment, Duan Lingtian finally regained his senses. No wonder he felt the Sun true origin in his body, pouring out when the old man cast the elementary devouring tactic earlier. As it turned out, the devouring power of the elementary devouring tactic had affected him. However, since his true strength was comparable to an early eminent saint stage martial cultivator, the devouring power of the elementary devouring tactic cast by the old man who was only at the early refined saint stage was limited and could not devour his Sun true origin. What a domineering divine ability! Duan Lingtian clicked his tongue inwardly. According to what this senior said, if my opponent's strength isn't too much stronger than mine, I can use the elementary devouring tactic to absorb his opponent's strength when I'm fighting him. I can also use the opponent's strength to strengthen myself. The moment Duan Lingtian thought of this, his emotions surged again. Just imagine, if two people with similar techniques and strength were to fight, and one of them suddenly cast the elementary devouring tactic to devour the energy around him and his opponent's energy, how terrifying would that be? At that time, the person who cast the elementary devouring tactic would be able to easily crush his opponent. Duan Lingtian, who had witnessed the might of the elementary devouring tactic, did not doubt this at all. While Duan Lingtian was immersed in his thoughts due to the elementary devouring tactic, a wave of vast and majestic information entered his mind. In the beginning, he instinctively resisted the information. However, when he discovered the information was related to the elementary devouring tactic, he immediately stopped resisting and allowed it to enter his mind. The information was vast and majestic. When Duan Lingtian tried to comprehend it, he discovered the information was difficult for him to comprehend at this moment. Although it was difficult to comprehend, it did not affect Duan Lingtian from trying to understand and familiarize himself with it. Naturally, at this moment, no matter how well Duan Lingtian understood and familiarized himself with it, it was just a theory. With his current strength, he could not cast the divine ability at all. Ordinary martial cultivators would need to break through to the divine saint stage before they could attempt to comprehend and master the divine ability. Duan Lingtian, on the other hand, did not need to wait until he had broken through to the divine saint stage due to the sun-true origin in his body. However, although he did not need to wait until he had broken through to the divine saint stage, he still needed to wait until he had broken through to the eminent saint stage. Only when his cultivation base had broken through to the eminent saint stage would his sun-true origin be comparable to an ordinary early saint stage martial cultivator. At that time, he would be able to cast the divine ability. That's it. An hour had passed, and Duan Lingtian discovered the information had stopped being transmitted. He had completely absorbed the information regarding the high-grade divine ability, the elementary devouring tactic. When he started receiving this information earlier, Duan Lingtian had instinctively closed his eyes, and when he opened his eyes now, he noticed that the old man had vanished. Along with the old man was the combat arena that was surrounded by the spectating area like stars surrounding the moon. At this moment, he had returned to the desert that was filled with wind and sand. The abyssal swamp had disappeared. Little fellow, I've already passed the elementary devouring tactic to you. From now on, the abyssal swamp and the inheritance of the elementary devouring tactic will no longer exist in the Saint Martial Secret Zone. My name is Jiangcheng. Perhaps we'll meet again in the future. I look forward to it. When Duan Lingtian saw the desert, the old man's voice resonated in his ears again. From then on, the old man's voice no longer resonated in his ears. It was as though he had completely disappeared. The abyssal swamp will no longer exist in the Saint Martial Secret Zone. The elementary devouring tactic will no longer exist. When Duan Lingtian heard the old man's words, he was stunned for a long time. Based on what he knew, the divine ability relics in the mystical sky mansion's Saint Martial Secret Zone usually appeared here. After someone obtained the divine ability, it might appear in another place. However, he had never heard of a divine ability relic that would disappear completely after one obtained the divine ability. However, the owner of the voice would not lie to him. If that's the case, doesn't this mean the inheritance of the elementary devouring tactic will no longer exist in the mystical sky mansion? The moment Duan Lingtian thought of this, a wry smile appeared on his face. Although it was not easy to obtain the inheritance of the elementary devouring tactic, since there might not be anyone who could pass the 9 tests in the abyssal swamp, the moment Duan Lingtian thought about how he had caused the mystical sky mansion to lose the inheritance of this divine ability, he felt slightly guilty. I really owe them a huge favor this time. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. He owed the mystical sky mansion a huge favor. Forget it. After I've broken through to the eminent saint stage and mastered the elementary devouring tactic, I'll pass the elementary devouring tactic to a suitable mystical sky mansion's disciple. At that time, I'll be able to return the favor to the mystical sky mansion. After making up his mind, Duan Lingtian sighed in relief. Whether it was in his past life or his current life, he hated owing people favors the most. As the saying went, a debt of gratitude is the most difficult to return. However, Duan Lingtian was unaware that the elementary devouring tactic that could be considered as a top divine ability in the entire Dao martial saint land was not so easily passed down. As the saying went, those who are ignorant are fearless. This was exactly what Duan Lingtian was talking about. No matter what, obtaining a divine ability like the elementary devouring tactic was a joyous occasion. Currently, I've already been in the Saint Martial Secret Zone for 2 months. There's only a month left before I'll be forcefully transported out of the Saint Martial Secret Zone. There's only a month left. I must find them as soon as possible. The them Duan Lingtian was referring to was naturally Wang Feixian and Lu Jian. Before they entered the Saint Martial Secret Zone, they had already formed a small team and agreed to work together. However, ever since they entered the Saint Martial Secret Zone, Duan Lingtian did not encounter them at all. Next, even if I discover a divine ability relic, I won't explore it for now. I must find them first. As mentioned earlier, Duan Lingtian hated owing people favors the most. Due to this reason, he really hoped to take this opportunity to return the favor he owed Lu Hongguang, the second elder of Raging Wave Mansion, during this trip to the Saint Martial Secret Zone. As long as he could help Lu Jian obtain a divine ability, he would be able to return the favor. 5 days later, Duan Lingtian discovered a divine ability relic. However, he was not in a hurry to explore it. The most important thing now was to find Wang Feixian and Lu Jian. Finally, after 8 days, Duan Lingtian discovered Wang Feixian. When he discovered Wang Feixian was alone. You didn't encounter Lu Jian as well? Before Wang Feixian noticed Duan Lingtian had already appeared next to her and asked. Duan Lingtian's sudden appearance had, naturally, taken Wang Feixian by surprise. After she regained her senses, Wang Feixian said, "I've finally found you." As for Lu Jian, Wang Feixian smiled wryly. "I met him a few days ago, and he was just eliminated yesterday." He was eliminated? Duan Lingtian frowned. If Lu Jian was eliminated, did this not mean he had lost the opportunity to return Lu Hongguang's favor? When Wang Feixian saw Duan Lingtian frowning, she seemed to have guessed what was on his mind. She said, "Don't worry, I've already helped you return the favor you owe Lu Jian Sr. I entered a divine ability relic with him a few days ago, and I followed the rules you told me before we came in and gave him the divine ability in the first divine ability relic we discovered." Wang Feixian's words shocked Duan Lingtian. "But I only said that if I'm around." Chapter 1787. Although Duan Lingtian said that, he was still grateful to Wang Feixian. "Cut the crap." Wang Feixian waved her hand and interrupted Duan Lingtian domineeringly. "Since I've already returned the favor for you, it's your turn to owe me a favor now." "Of course, I'll return the favor." Duan Lingtian smiled. 3 days ago, I discovered a divine ability relic. Let's go. Let's go there. I'll give you the divine ability inside the divine ability relic." What a coincidence. I have a clue about a divine ability relic as well. Wang Feixian smiled as well. Oh? Duan Lingtian was slightly surprised. He did not expect Wang Feixian would have a clue about another divine ability relic after helping Lu Jian obtain the divine ability. Speaking of which, Lu Jian was killed in that divine ability relic. That divine ability relic is much more dangerous than the first divine ability relic we explored earlier. However, although it's dangerous, the divine ability contained in that divine ability relic must be extraordinary as well, Wang Feixian said. Duan Lingtian agreed with Wang Feixian's words. As someone who had been through this before, he, naturally, understood this. For example, the divine ability relic, the Abyssal Swamp, he had encountered earlier had a total of 9 trials. Apart from a few trials, the other trials were ridiculously difficult. However, apart from the difficulty of the divine ability relic, the rewards were also very generous. The elementary devouring tactic was undoubtedly a high-grade divine ability. Moreover, Duan Lingtian speculated that the elementary devouring tactic would be ranked among the best among the high-grade divine abilities. Currently, Duan Lingtian was unaware that the elementary devouring tactic was publicly acknowledged as the #1 divine ability in the St. Martial secret zone by the powerhouses of the mystical Sky Mansion. If he knew, he would not be guessing like a headless fly. Where's the location of the divine ability relic you discovered? Let's go from the nearest to the furthest. Wang Feixian suggested. Duan Lingtian had no objections to Wang Feixian's suggestion. After talking to each other for a while, they realized that the divine ability relic that Wang Feixian knew was much closer, so the two of them decided to go there first. What is the level of the divine ability that you helped Lu Jian obtain? Duan Lingtian asked. It should be an intermediate grade divine ability. Half of the reason why I was able to pass the last stage was due to luck. Wang Feixian said. Lu Jian's luck is not bad. Duan Lingtian nodded and continued. However, the divine ability relic we're going to now should be much more difficult than the first one you encountered, right? In this regard, Duan Lingtian had already made a decision in his heart. He was just casually asking. After all, Lu Jian was eliminated in the divine ability relic. Wang Feixian had also left the divine ability relic after Lu Jian was eliminated. It was obvious she was not confident she could pass the various stages in the divine ability relic. Yes. Wang Feixian nodded. What level of divine ability relic do you think it's? Duan Lingtian asked. Wang Feixian glanced at Duan Lingtian and finally answered truthfully. Even if the divine ability recorded in the divine ability relic isn't a high-grade divine ability, it's definitely a top-grade intermediate-grade divine ability. Then both of you are quite lucky to have encountered 2 divine ability relic sites that are not bad. Duan Lingtian smiled. Then, Duan Lingtian seemed to have thought of something as he continued to say, as the saying goes, even brothers should settle accounts clearly. Since we've met up, it's only natural that we have to split the divine ability relics we encounter later. How about this? We're heading to the divine ability relic you found now. The divine ability in it belongs to you. The divine ability within the divine ability relic I found 3 days ago belongs to me, Duan Lingtian said bluntly. The divine ability relic you found, have you entered it before? Wang Feixian did not rush to respond to Duan Lingtian. Instead, she asked this question. What? Are you worried that the divine ability recorded in that divine ability relic is of a higher level than the divine ability you encountered in the divine ability relic? Hearing Wang Feixian's words, how could Duan Lingtian not know what she meant? He immediately teased. Why don't we switch places? Being exposed by Duan Lingtian, Wang Feixian's pretty face immediately turned red. Let's switch places. Who's afraid of who? Forget it. Let's not switch places for the time being. Because I haven't explored that divine ability relic myself, I don't know the situation inside. How about this? The divine ability relic you found will still belong to you. When we go to the divine ability relic I found, if you think the divine ability inside should be good, I can also give it to you. Duan Lingtian said, however, if we discover other divine ability relics later on, 2 in a row will belong to me. What do you think? At this time, Wang Feixian also realized that Duan Lingtian really did not know the situation of the divine ability relic he found. Otherwise, he would definitely not say such a thing. From Duan Lingtian's words, she could tell that he had been thinking for her. For a moment, Wang Feixian's cheeks were a little hot, and she hurriedly said, Let's do as you said earlier. The divine ability I found will belong to me, and the divine ability you found will belong to you. We'll take turns finding the divine ability later on. That's fine too. Duan Lingtian nodded. Following that, under Wang Feixian's lead, Duan Lingtian went to the divine ability relic where Lu Jian was eliminated. It had to be said that Wang Feixian's luck was not bad. Although the trials in this divine ability relic were not as difficult as the abyssal swamp that Duan Lingtian had previously explored, it was still much more difficult than the 6 Harmonies Pagoda and 6 Halls Palace that Duan Lingtian had previously explored. It seems like it's just as you guessed. Even if the divine ability recorded in this divine ability relic is not a high-grade divine ability, it's still a top-notch middle-grade divine ability, Duan Lingtian said to Wang Feixian after they passed several trials in a row. Wang Feixian followed Duan Lingtian and did not do anything from the beginning until the end because she did not have time to do anything. Every time they encountered danger, Duan Lingtian would immediately discover it and resolve it in a timely manner. However, even if it's a high-grade divine ability, it's probably at the bottom of the high-grade divine abilities. Wang Feixian said, "What? You don't like it? Why don't we switch?" Duan Lingtian said with a smile, "If you want to switch, I don't have any objections." Wang Feixian said bluntly, "Forget it, I don't want to cheat you. If the divine ability relic I discovered was only a low-grade divine ability relic, I'm afraid you won't know who to cry to." Duan Lingtian shook his head. After he discovered the divine ability relic, he did not explore it. Therefore, he was not sure what grade the divine ability relic was. Lu Jian was killed at the last trial. At that time, I couldn't even take care of myself, so I couldn't save him. Wang Feixian said. Yes. Duan Lingtian nodded. Ever since he found out Wang Feixian had helped him return the favor, he had gotten over Lu Jian's elimination. What he wanted to do now was to return the favor to Wang Feixian. Soon after, they arrived at the next trial. The trial was extremely difficult for Wang Feixian, but it was extremely easy for Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian only used the span of a dozen breaths to kill all the obstacles in his way. Wang Feixian was dumbfounded when she saw this. His strength? I'm afraid he's one of the best among all the martial cultivators at the peak of the refined saint stage. Wang Feixian thought to herself as she watched Duan Lingtian's back. They continued to pass the trial until they reached the final trial. The person guarding the final trial was a woman with a sexy figure and a beautiful face. She was dressed in revealing clothes. Every movement she made was seductive. When Wang Feixian saw the woman's strength at the peak of the refined saint stage, her expression turned grave immediately. When Wang Feixian saw this woman had even cast an extremely brilliant movement divine ability and displayed a speed that was almost on par with an eminent saint stage powerhouse, horror dawned on her face. Her heart was filled with unwillingness. Don't tell me that I, Wang Feixian, am destined to have no fate with the divine ability in this divine ability relic? At this moment, even if Duan Lingtian was here, she did not have any confidence at all. Perhaps, Duan Lingtian's strength was not inferior to the woman, but her speed was boosted by her movement divine ability. She was extremely fast, almost on par with an eminent saint stage powerhouse. What a fast speed! Duan Lingtian was shocked when he saw the woman's speed. Her speed was not much slower than his. In fact, his speed was on par with an early eminent saint stage powerhouse. Lingtian, it's fine if you can't do it. Let's leave. Wang Feixian took a deep breath. Although she was unwilling, she still decided to leave with Duan Lingtian. She was afraid if she stayed here for too long, she would not be able to leave even if she wanted to. However, she soon realized Duan Lingtian was ignoring her. She instinctively looked at Duan Lingtian, only to discover Duan Lingtian had already disappeared from his spot. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The sound of wind whistling reverberated in the air, causing the air to tremble. A series of faint explosions reverberated in the air. At this moment, Wang Feixian finally realized Duan Lingtian had already charged toward the woman. Most importantly, he was not at a disadvantage in terms of speed. The woman moved, and silhouettes appeared out of thin air in front of her. In the end, she increased her speed even more. As she passed by, it seemed as though there were hundreds and thousands of silhouettes in her wake. One could see how fast she was. However, to Wang Feixian's surprise, Duan Lingtian did not fall into a disadvantageous position even when faced with the woman who had increased her speed again. What a fast speed! At this moment, Duan Lingtian was even more surprised when he saw the woman at the peak of the refined saint stage had a speed that was comparable to an early eminent saint stage powerhouse. In terms of speed, the woman's speed was not inferior to his. Her true origin is at the peak of the refined saint stage. The reason she's so fast has to do with the movement divine ability she cast. This movement divine ability is most likely a high-grade divine ability. The divine ability recorded in this divine ability relic must be the movement divine ability she's casting now. Chapter 1788. If Duan Lingtian and the woman were in the outside world, he might not have been able to catch up to the woman. However, they were now in a small space. Of course, it was not small, but compared to the almost endless space in the outside world, it was indeed very small. Due to this reason, it was easy for Duan Ling Tian to find an opportunity to intercept the woman. In terms of speed, the woman was on par with Duan Ling Tian. In terms of overall strength, she was far inferior to Duan Ling Tian, because her speed was so fast because she relied on the high-level movement technique. Due to this reason, it was easy for Duan Ling Tian to kill her and vaporize her under such circumstances. The scene in front of her stunned Wang Fei Xian. After a while, she looked at Duan Ling Tian and forced out a sentence. You really are ruthless. What? You want me to let her go? Duan Ling Tian said with a faint smile. Seeing the void tremble, a crack appeared, and then a huge stone tablet flew out from behind the crack and landed on the ground. Duan Ling Tian looked at Wang Fei Xian and urged, Go. After memorizing the theurgy on it, we should go to the next stop. If I'm not wrong, that should be a high-level movement technique. Duan Ling Tian added. High-level movement technique theurgy? Hearing Duan Ling Tian's words, Wang Fei Xian could not help but think of the woman's speed. The woman's speed was clearly not compatible with her overall strength. At that time, she had also guessed that the woman had used a movement technique. Now, with Duan Ling Tian's reminder, she also realized that the woman had very likely used the theurgy that she was about to master. When Wang Fei Xian's divine sense entered the stone tablet, the joy of the theurgy recorded on it flooded into her mind. Movement divine ability, 1,000 illusory shadows. At this moment, she knew the name of the divine ability she was about to master. Moreover, the more she read, the more excited she became. She discovered this movement divine ability, the 1,000 illusory shadows, was indeed a high-grade divine ability. Moreover, it would be much easier for a woman to cultivate it. This was a movement divine ability that was tailor-made for a woman. In other words, when she broke through to the divine saint stage in the future, it would be much easier for her to comprehend and master this divine ability compared to ordinary divine abilities since she was a woman. Of course, this didn't mean that only women could cultivate this divine ability. It was just that women could cultivate it with twice the result with half the effort. If a man cultivated it with twice the effort, the result would be half the result with half the effort. As an intermediate refined divine ability after she had broken through to the divine saint stage, she only took a day and a night to memorize all the information about the 1,000 illusory shadows of the 1,000 illusory shadows to her mind. She was only too to comprehend and master, to master it at divine, able to master it, to master, to cast it, to master. In just a blink of an eye, Duan Ling Tian discovered he had returned to the place before he entered the divine ability relic. He was not surprised by this at all. This was because he had experienced a similar situation a few times before. Let's go. Since they had come out, Wang Fei Xian must have memorized all the information about the divine ability. For this reason, Duan Ling Tian immediately asked Wang Fei Xian to leave and head to the divine ability relic he had discovered earlier. Currently, there were only about 20 days left before they would be forcefully sent out of the Saint Martial secret zone. How many divine abilities they would be able to obtain would depend on their luck in the next 20 days. Naturally, apart from luck, efficiency was also very important. Due to this reason, Duan Ling Tian did not want to waste any time. As soon as Wang Fei Xian regained her senses, he began to urge her to leave. Swoosh, swoosh. Duan Ling Tian led the way while Wang Fei Xian followed closely behind. The latter traveled at full speed while the former deliberately slowed down in consideration of the latter. Following behind Duan Ling Tian and looking at Duan Ling Tian's back, Wang Fei Xian's gaze was extremely complicated. The speed he displayed at that time has clearly surpassed the speed of a powerhouse at the peak of the refined saint stage. That speed is comparable to an early eminent saint stage powerhouse. As the great young miss of a fourth-rate force, the tyrannical saber mansion, Wang Fei Xian's experience was, naturally, not low. She had even witnessed the speed of many early eminent saint stage powerhouses. Due to this reason, she was almost certain when Duan Ling Tian helped her to pass through the last trial in the divine ability relic earlier, the speed he displayed was comparable to an early eminent saint stage powerhouse. Although that woman's cultivation base is only at the peak of the refined saint stage, the speed she displayed, the divine ability, the thousand illusory shadows, is comparable to an early eminent saint stage powerhouse. Under such circumstances, the only reason he could kill her was because his speed was not inferior to hers. As Wang Fei Xian muttered to herself, she focused her gaze on Duan Lingtian again. Don't tell me he has made a breakthrough again? Don't tell me he's already an early eminent saint stage powerhouse? The moment Wang Fei Xian thought of this, her heartbeat quickened. That's not right. However, Wang Fei Xian soon felt that something was amiss. This fellow had just broken through to the peak of the refined saint stage not long ago. At that time, it had caused a commotion in the Heaven Palace and the entire mystical sky mansion. No matter how monstrous and freakish his innate talent is, it's impossible for him to make 2 consecutive breakthroughs from the mastery refined saint stage in such a short time, right? However, if he didn't make a breakthrough, how could he possess such a fast speed? Wang Fei Xian was puzzled. In the end, she could not help but ask, have you made a breakthrough to the eminent saint stage? Are you asking me? Duan Lingtian turned around and glanced at Wang Fei Xian. Nonsense. There's only the 2 of us here. If I'm not asking you, am I supposed to be asking myself? When Wang Fei Xian heard Duan Lingtian's words, the expression on her face eased up a little. At the same time, she retorted in annoyance. No. Duan Lingtian shook his head when he saw Wang Fei Xian was asking about him. I haven't broken through to the eminent saint stage yet. He wanted to break through to the eminent saint stage because that would mean he could officially cultivate, comprehend, and master all kinds of divine abilities. You haven't broken through to the eminent saint stage, but you can display the speed of an early eminent saint stage powerhouse? Wang Fei Xian stared at him. How did you do it? Would you believe me if I told you I mastered a movement divine ability? Duan Lingtian asked with a smile. Tch. Wang Fei Xian looked at Duan Lingtian with disdain. Do you think I'm a 3-year-old kid? You want to master a divine ability before breaking through to the divine saint stage? You must be dreaming. Duan Lingtian smiled and did not explain. After all, he was just trying to fool Wang Fei Xian. The reason he could display the speed of an early eminent saint stage powerhouse was, naturally, due to the Sun True origin. However, the existence of the Sun True origin was undoubtedly a big secret to him. This secret was not only related to Hua Lao, but it was also related to the celestial supreme treasure, the 7 treasures exquisite pagoda, in his possession. It's been a long time since I've searched for materials to repair the 7 treasures exquisite pagoda. After I leave the St. Martial secret zone, I'll try my best to borrow the mystical sky mansion's power to search for materials for the 7 treasures exquisite pagoda, so I can repair the 4th level of the 7 treasures exquisite pagoda as soon as possible. Duan Lingtian made up his mind when he thought about the 7 treasures exquisite pagoda. Repairing the 4th level of the 7 treasures exquisite pagoda was of great significance to him. First of all, he would be able to obtain a better cultivation environment at that time. Moreover, according to Hua Lao, the time flow on the 4th level of the 7 treasures exquisite pagoda was much slower than the 3rd level of the 7 treasures exquisite pagoda. If one stayed on the 4th level of the 7 treasures exquisite pagoda for 8 days, only 1 day would pass outside. Compared to the 3rd level of the 7 treasures exquisite pagoda, it was much more efficient. Of course, this was not the most important thing. Once the 4th level of the 7 treasures exquisite pagoda was repaired, his life would be further protected. This was because he could immediately hide in the 7 treasures exquisite pagoda when he was in danger. To Duan Lingtian, the latter was more tempting than the former. Everyone only had 1 life, and this included Duan Lingtian as well. Therefore, he cherished his life very much. To put it bluntly, he was actually afraid of death. However, in this world, apart from some real lunatics, how many people were really not afraid of death? The higher the cultivation base and the stronger the ability, it also meant that the more effort they had put in the past, and the more they valued their lives. Of course, this did not mean that Duan Lingtian valued his life more than anything else. If it was him in his previous life, perhaps he would value his movement technique and life more than anything else. However, it was not the case for him in this life. In this life, he had family and friends. Those people were worthy of him using his life to protect. You should have obtained the movement technique divine ability that woman used before, right? The sun vital essence in his body was Duan Lingtian's secret. Therefore, he did not intend to say too much. He promptly changed the topic and looked at Wang Fei Xian. That's right. Hearing Duan Lingtian mention the divine ability she had obtained, Wang Fei Xian immediately smiled. The divine ability I obtained is the movement technique divine ability that woman used. What is it called? Duan Lingtian asked curiously. 1,000 illusory shadows. Wang Fei Xian said. 1,000 illusory shadows? Duan Lingtian raised his eyebrows as he recalled the scene when he fought with that woman. The afterimages that were dragged out were vivid in his mind. That movement technique divine ability lives up to its name. After half a day, Duan Lingtian brought Wang Fei Xian to the divine ability relic that he had discovered. The divine ability relic in this divine ability relic. Can you guess what level it is? Before entering, Wang Fei Xian looked at Duan Lingtian and asked, I can't guess. Duan Lingtian shook his head. If you really haven't explored it, I'm guessing it's a low-level divine ability relic. Wang Fei Xian said with a rare playful wink. I hope your jinx doesn't come true. The divine ability relic in here is mine. Chapter 1789. Duan Lingtian and Wang Fei Xian entered the divine ability relic that Duan Lingtian discovered a few days ago. Wang Fei Xian easily annihilated the few savage beasts in the first test because they were just a few early pristine saint stage savage beasts. It seems like I'm right. Although he had only passed the first trial, the difficulty of the first trial was enough to show that the god art recorded in this god art relic wasn't something worth looking forward to. Don't jinx it. Duan Lingtian glared at Wang Fei Xian. Of course, although he said that, he did not blame Wang Fei Xian in his heart. After all, even if Wang Fei Xian did not say that, it would not change the fact that this was just a low-level divine ability relic. Wang Fei Xian easily passed the next few tests. From the beginning to the end, Duan Lingtian did not have to make a move. Just as the two of them had guessed, the divine ability recorded in this divine ability relic was indeed just a low-level divine ability, a very useless low-level divine ability. Although he did not think much of it, Duan Lingtian still remembered it. It took less than 2 days from entering the divine ability relic to coming out. I think the next divine ability relic that we find will definitely record a mid-level divine ability or high-level divine ability. Just as Duan Lingtian and Wang Fei Xian were about to search for the third divine ability relic, Wang Fei Xian said to Duan Lingtian with a teasing smile, the divine ability in the next divine ability relic would belong to her. You're thinking too much. Duan Lingtian said in annoyance, I guess the next divine ability relic will be the same as the previous one. There will only be a useless low-level divine ability in it. What? Do you want to compete with me to see whose mouth is more accurate? Don't forget that I was right about your divine ability relic just now. Humph. The next divine ability relic will definitely not be a low-level divine ability relic. Wang Fei Xian snorted. It was obvious that she was deliberately provoking Duan Lingtian. 3 days later, the two of them found another divine ability relic. As it turned out, Princess, you could guess correctly once, but she might not be able to guess correctly a second time. This divine ability relic was also a low-level divine ability relic. Jinx. Don't jinx it. Along the way, Wang Fei could not help but complain whenever she saw Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian was speechless. Women and villains were really difficult to deal with. Did she forget she was the one who cursed him first? After Wang Fei Xian obtained the low-level divine ability relic, the two of them continued to look for the next target. On the way, Wang Fei Xian looked over and seemed to want to say something. Duan Lingtian immediately said with a vigilant face, I'm warning you, if you dare to curse me again, don't even think about getting a mid-level divine ability relic. As for a high-level one, don't even think about it. When Wang Fei Xian recalled how both of them were injured, she immediately shut her mouth and no longer said anything. However, she could not help but glare at Duan Lingtian. As the saying went, when men and women work together, work is not tiring. In just 1 day, the two of them found the entrance to another divine ability relic. According to the rules of cooperation, This divine ability relic belonged to Duan Lingtian. I hope the divine ability relic in this divine ability relic is a mid-level or above offensive divine ability. After entering the divine ability relic, Duan Lingtian thought to himself. In the Dao martial saint land, although divine abilities were similar to martial tactics, they were completely different from martial tactics. It was possible to cast divine abilities while casting martial tactics. The effects of the two could be stacked. Due to this reason, if Duan Lingtian could obtain an offensive divine ability, his strength would definitely improve when he broke through to the eminent saint stage. In fact, as soon as he broke through to the eminent saint stage, he would be able to officially cultivate divine abilities. So far, he already had 3 decent Shintongha in his hands. The 6 Harmonies Golden Body was a defensive divine ability, the Elementary Devouring Tactic was an assist-type divine ability, and the Golden Crow's Wings was a movement divine ability. Among the 3 divine abilities, the 6 Harmonies Golden Body had the lowest level. It was only a mid-level divine ability. As for the other 2 divine abilities, before he returned to his body and communicated with Hualao in the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda, he did not know which divine ability was more advanced. However, subconsciously, he still felt that the divine ability, the Golden Crow's Wings, should be more advanced. After all, it was Hualao's bloodline divine ability as a 3-legged golden crow. Naturally, even if he managed to cultivate the Golden Crow's Wings that Hualao had passed to him to the highest level, it would not be comparable to the Golden Crow's Wings that Hualao had cast. This was because it was Hualao's bloodline divine ability. When Hualao cast it, it would have a huge boost. However, even then, it was still a divine ability that did not belong to the mundane planets. Due to this reason, Duan Lingtian subconsciously felt that the Golden Crow's Wings was the most powerful divine ability among the 3 divine abilities that he had mastered that would be helpful to him. Naturally, although he felt this way, he was not certain. He had a feeling that the Elementary Devouring Tactic was not as simple as it seemed. I'll have to ask Hualao after I leave the Saint Martial Secret Zone to find out the specifics. With this thought in mind, Duan Lingtian did not dwell on this matter anymore. However, the only thing Duan Lingtian currently lacked was an offensive divine ability. Although he had inherited the Supreme Sword Dao mental cultivation method, the Sovereign Heart Sword, from the Sword Saint, Feng Qingyang, to a certain extent, the Sovereign Heart Sword still belonged to the category of martial arts. With the help of the Sovereign Heart Sword's level, the techniques he displayed were also in the category of martial arts. It would only clash with other martial arts techniques, but it would not clash with divine abilities. Of course, it would be even better if it's an offensive divine ability like a sword technique. Duan Lingtian kept dreaming in his heart. Wang Feixian was unaware of Duan Lingtian's current thoughts. Otherwise, she would have definitely laughed at him and said that he was dreaming. Soon after, Duan Lingtian and Wang Feixian went through the first test of the divine ability relic. Duan Lingtian's expression darkened immediately after he killed the guardian wild beast in the first test. Wang Feixian's face was flushed red. After a long while, she finally could not help but laugh out loud. "You can't blame me this time. I didn't curse you." Based on the first test, the divine ability relic contained another low-grade divine ability. This was indeed the case. Just wait and see. The divine ability in the next divine ability relic will definitely not be a low-grade divine ability. Wang Feixian said confidently as they continued to search for the next divine ability relic. "I hope so." Duan Lingtian nodded and no longer mocked Wang Feixian. Apart from that, he had also completely recovered from his depressed mood when he encountered another low-grade divine ability relic. "Don't worry. When it's your turn next time, the divine ability in the divine ability relic that you encounter will definitely not be a low-grade divine ability." Seeing that Duan Lingtian was no longer arguing with her, Wang Feixian was not used to it. "Let's leave it to fate." Duan Lingtian smiled and said nonchalantly, Are you all right?" Wang Feixian paused and looked at Duan Lingtian seriously. "What can happen to me? Let's go." Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled. Although he was in a hurry to obtain an offensive divine ability, after obtaining that low-grade divine ability, he was no longer in such a hurry. It was not that the low-grade divine ability was special, but Duan Lingtian suddenly realized that he was a little too greedy. The divine ability, the the 6 Harmonies golden body, that he obtained in the St. Martial secret zone was still alright since it was a medium-grade divine ability. However, the other divine ability, the elementary devouring tactic, that he obtained was not only a high-grade divine ability in the St. Martial secret zone, but it was also a unique high-grade divine ability in the St. Martial secret zone. At the very least, it was unique in the mystical Sky Mansion's St. Martial secret zone. The moment Duan Lingtian thought of this, he finally accepted it. After all, contentment was bliss. Even if he could not obtain any useful divine abilities in the future, his trip to the St. Martial secret zone this time could be considered as a success. It was precisely because of this that he was so calm. Naturally, Wang Feixian did not know about Duan Lingtian's previous experience and the change in his mentality. For this reason, it was impossible for her to know why Duan Lingtian had such a change. One must admit that Wang Feixian's luck was indeed not bad. 2 days later, the two of them discovered another divine ability relic. The trials in this divine ability relic were not any weaker than the trials in the 6 Harmonies Pagoda and 6 Halls Palace that Duan Lingtian had gone through previously. The divine ability recorded in this divine ability was similar to the divine ability recorded in the 6 Harmonies Pagoda and 6 Halls Palace. It was a defensive divine ability. However, although this defensive divine ability was also a medium-grade divine ability, it was slightly inferior to the defensive divine ability, the 6 Harmonies golden body, that Duan Lingtian had obtained. Naturally, the difference was not much. After obtaining a high-grade divine ability and a medium-grade divine ability in succession, Wang Feixian was in a good mood. Let's go. Let's continue to look for the next divine ability relic. They soon found the next divine ability relic. This was Duan Lingtian's divine ability relic. However, it was still a low-grade divine ability. Duan Lingtian was not too surprised by this. On the contrary, Wang Feixian was a little embarrassed. Why don't we change the rules? In the future divine ability relics, until we encounter a medium-grade or higher divine ability, the low-grade divine ability will belong to me? If it's a medium-grade or higher divine ability, it will belong to you? Even Wang Feixian could not bear to see Duan Lingtian's bad luck. She was really worried that Duan Lingtian would encounter a low-grade divine ability when she obtained the 3rd medium-grade or higher divine ability. No need. Due to the change in his mentality, Duan Lingtian directly rejected Wang Feixian's good intentions. Why are you so stubborn? Wang Feixian was not happy with Duan Lingtian's rejection. Do you think you're protecting your man's dignity by rejecting me at this time? Do you think that your so-called dignity as a man is more important than your future? You must know that sometimes a medium-grade or higher divine ability can even change your future. Do you think I didn't obtain a medium-grade or higher divine ability before I met you? Chapter 1790. Upon hearing Duan Lingtian's words, Wang Feixian was stunned. That's right. When she met Duan Lingtian had already been in the St. Martial secret zone for 2 months. Logically speaking, with Duan Lingtian's strength, it was impossible for him to not have encountered any other divine ability relics. Most of the divine ability relics that they found recently were found by Duan Lingtian. For a moment, she even wanted to dig out Duan Lingtian's eyes to see what was different about them and why it was so easy for them to find divine ability relics. Since you don't appreciate it, then I have nothing to say. Wang Feixian snorted and did not say anything else. However, she could not help but think to herself, if the divine ability in the next divine ability relic is a medium-grade divine ability or above, let's see how he regrets it. The divine ability in the next divine ability relic belonged to Wang Feixian. Perhaps Wang Feixian was really lucky. The divine ability in the next divine ability relic was indeed a medium-grade divine ability. Moreover, it was an offensive divine ability called the Falling Leaves Flying Flowers. How is it? Do you regret it? Wang Feixian asked Duan Lingtian after she memorized the divine ability. There's nothing to regret. Duan Lingtian smiled faintly. If it was him in the past, he might feel regretful that he was not the one who obtained the offensive divine ability. However, his mentality had changed. He no longer cared about it. The divine ability in the next divine ability relic belonged to Duan Lingtian. Perhaps Duan Lingtian's luck was really bad. It was another low-grade divine ability. The divine ability in the next divine ability relic belonged to Wang Fei Xian. This time, Wang Fei Xian's luck was not very good. She also obtained a low-grade divine ability. This should be the last divine ability relic we'll explore. After 4 days, the Saint Martial Secret Zone will forcefully teleport us out. Wang Fei Xian said after discovering another divine ability relic and entering it.
Yes.
Duan Lingtian nodded. There were only 4 days left, and it was only enough for them to pass through this sacred art relic. This is the last divine ability relic. I hope it's a mid-level divine ability or above. Wang Fei Xian glanced at Duan Lingtian and said, "It just so happened that it was Duan Lingtian's turn to obtain the divine ability of this divine ability relic." "I hope so." Duan Lingtian nodded and appeared very calm. It was as if he didn't care what level of divine ability was recorded in this divine ability relic. Seeing that the person involved didn't seem to care, Wang Fei Xian didn't say anything else. However, Wang Fei Xian turned pale with fright when she was faced with the first trial. Why are they so powerful? Even though Wang Fei Xian was at the intermediate refined saint stage, she could not pass the first challenge. The difficulty of this challenge was even more difficult than the first challenge in the Divine Ability Relic, where she obtained the high-grade movement divine ability, the 1,000 Illusory Shadows. High-grade divine ability? At the same time, Wang Fei Xian muttered to herself after taking a deep breath. "My luck's not bad." Duan Lingtian smiled and strode out. The trial that Wang Fei Xian could not pass was nothing to him. He only spent a dozen breaths of time before he annihilated the guardian savage beast of the first trial. Then, he began to challenge the subsequent challenges. The subsequent challenges were much more difficult than the challenge in the Divine Ability Relic, where Wang Fei Xian obtained the high-grade movement divine ability, the 1,000 Illusory Shadows. This made Duan Lingtian and Wang Fei Xian even more certain that the divine ability contained in this divine ability relic was most likely a high-grade divine ability. Don't tell me it's really a high-grade sword-type divine ability? Duan Lingtian thought to himself when he entered the next challenge and discovered he had appeared in another sword tomb. The previous few checkpoints were all on the sword mounts. Naturally, they were all different sword tombs. The test in every sword tomb was different, and it was extremely difficult to pass through. At the very least, Wang Fei Xian was not confident she could pass all the challenges. However, to Duan Lingtian, who had passed the Divine Ability Relic, the Abyssal Swamp, and obtained the unique high-grade divine ability, the Elementary Devouring Tactic, in the Mystical Sky Mansion's Saint Martial Secret Zone, these challenges were nothing to him. The challenges he had passed in the Abyssal Swamp were much more difficult than this. The high-grade divine ability contained in this divine ability relic is definitely not as good as the elementary devouring tactic. However, compared to the high-grade movement divine ability, the 1,000 Illusory Shadows she obtained earlier, it should be slightly more powerful. This could be seen from the difficulty of the challenges he had encountered along the way. As it turns out, your bad luck from before has been accumulating. Wang Fei Xian sighed with an envious expression on her face. Duan Lingtian smiled and did not say anything as he continued to challenge the challenges. Although his mentality had changed, he would not reject a high-grade divine ability that was placed in front of him. It's the last challenge. We can finally find out what kind of divine ability is contained in this divine ability relic. Wang Fei Xian said before they entered the last challenge. In any divine ability relic, the last challenge was to challenge the person who had mastered the divine ability. The divine ability that the person cast was also the divine ability that could be obtained after defeating the person. At the last challenge, the person who appeared in front of Duan Lingtian and Wang Fei Xian was a young sword cultivator dressed in white. He carried a sheathed long sword on his back as he stood there as straight as a javelin. He gave off a feeling as though he was a sword. A sword cultivator? Duan Lingtian raised an eyebrow as his body emitted an awe-inspiring battle intent. He possessed the Supreme Sword Dao mental cultivation method, the Sovereign Heart Sword. Naturally, he could be considered as a sword cultivator as well. When he encountered someone who was also a sword cultivator, it was only natural for him to be competitive. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. As soon as Duan Lingtian emitted his battle intent, The white-clad young man's body swayed and disappeared from the spot. Naturally, he only disappeared before Wang Fei Xian's eyes. In Duan Lingtian's eyes, the white-clad young man shot up into the sky at an extremely fast speed. However, although his speed was fast, it was only comparable to the speed of an elite powerhouse at the peak of the refined saint stage. It was far from comparable to his speed. It was not even comparable to the speed of the woman who passed the last challenge in the Divine Ability Relic, where Wang Fei Xian obtained the Divine Ability, the 1,000 Illusory Shadows. However, the woman's speed was only comparable to Duan Lingtian due to the boost from her Divine Ability. This white-clad young man, on the other hand, did not have any movement Divine Ability to rely on. In terms of overall strength, that woman is far from comparable to him. When Duan Lingtian saw the powerful aura the white-clad young man emitted when he unsheathed his long sword, he could tell how powerful he was. He was definitely a top-tier powerhouse at the peak of the refined saint stage. Moreover, this was under the condition that he did not use his divine ability. If he used his divine ability, his strength would naturally increase. His divine ability? It must be a high-grade sword technique divine ability. However, I don't know if it's an offensive divine ability, a defensive divine ability, an assist-type divine ability, or even a movement divine ability. Sword-type divine abilities were divided into many types as well. Soon after, the technique the white-clad young man used told Duan Lingtian the answer. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. As the white-clad young man unsheathed his long sword, he did not seem to have made any movements, but 9 clones suddenly appeared around him. The 9 clones were identical to him. They held swords in their hands as they stared intently at Duan Lingtian. What a lifelike clones! When Duan Lingtian saw the 10 figures rapidly moving and mixing together in just a short while, he could not tell which figure was the true body at all even when he extended his divine consciousness. At this moment, Duan Lingtian discovered another 10 figures were charging at him one after another. The 3-foot-long green swords in their hands shot out 7-foot-long sword rays toward Duan Lingtian's head. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. The 10 white-clad young men were like 10 sword celestials that had descended from the 9 heavens. They wielded the swords in their hands as they shot toward Duan Lingtian at an extremely fast speed. What a fast sword! At this moment, Duan Lingtian's expression turned solemn. He discovered the sword rays that shot out from the 10 white-clad young men's hands were actually the most powerful attack a powerhouse at the peak of the refined saint stage could cast. Each sword was comparable to the most powerful attack a powerhouse at the peak of the refined saint stage could cast. Whoosh! The first white-clad young man charged over and tapped his sword on the colossal sword bell that rose from Duan Lingtian's body. It caused the colossal sword bell to tremble before it dimmed a little. Whoosh! Another white-clad young man charged over and attacked the colossal sword bell again, causing it to dim even more. Whoosh! The third white-clad young man used his third sword to destroy Duan Lingtian's colossal sword bell in one fell swoop. Although Duan Lingtian's colossal sword bell was comparable to the defense cast by an early eminent saint stage martial cultivator, it could only withstand 2 attacks from a powerhouse at the peak of the refined saint stage. It was impossible for it to withstand 3 attacks. With just 3 swords, Duan Lingtian's defense had been destroyed. There were 7 other white-clad young men who continued to charge toward Duan Lingtian with their swords after Duan Lingtian had lost his defense. Whoosh! Under such circumstances, Duan Lingtian, naturally, chose to dodge. However, no matter how he dodged, the swords in the 7 white-clad young men's hands still locked onto him. The 7 swords missed their target and left long sword marks in the air. At this moment, it seemed as though 7 cracks were about to appear in the air. Whoosh! All of a sudden, the sound of a sword whistling reverberated in Duan Lingtian's ears. When he raised his head instinctively, he saw the 3-foot-long green sword in one of the white-clad young men's hands was shining brightly. It instantly accelerated and charged toward him at a speed that was slightly faster than his own. That's the main body. At the same time, Duan Lingtian noticed the other 9 clones of the white-clad young man were entering his main body at an extremely fast speed. Every time a clone entered his main body, the strength of the sword in his main body's hand would increase. In the end, the speed of the white-clad young man's main body charging toward Duan Lingtian with the 3-foot-long green sword in his hand had reached a speed that was comparable to an intermediate eminent saint stage powerhouse. How fast? Duan Lingtian's expression changed drastically. Chapter 1791. The white-clad young man's sword was so powerful and fast that Duan Lingtian could not dodge it. I can only take this sword head-on. Duan Lingtian took a deep breath and immediately mobilized the Sun True Origin to form the 10,000 Swords territory as quickly as possible. However, the sword in the white-clothed young man's hand was simply too fast. Before the 10,000 Swords domain had the time to form, it had already crushed and shattered the 10,000 Swords domain with an unstoppable force. When the 10,000 Swords territory was shattered, the Sun True Origin shook and affected Duan Lingtian, causing his internal organs to tremble. Barf! Duan Lingtian spat out a mouthful of blood that turned into blood-red stars. However, Duan Lingtian did not have time to care about his injuries. The white-clad young man charged at him with the sword in his hand. It was as though he was a sword immortal who had descended from the 9 heavens to kill him. The moment the 10,000 Swords domain was crushed, the sun vital essence in his body immediately gathered in his hand through the 99 saint meridians in his body. It gushed out and turned into a 3-foot-long sword that shone with golden light. From afar, it looked like a blazing sun. Whoosh! The white-clad young man's eyes were cold, and no emotions could be seen on his face. However, the sword in his hand was like the scythe of the Grim Reaper to Duan Lingtian. It could take his life at any time. Although he would not really die if he was killed by the white-clad young man, Duan Lingtian did not intend to wait for death. This was the last stage of the divine ability relic. As long as he could pass it, he would be able to obtain a high-grade divine ability. Based on the white-clad young man's attack, it was obvious the divine ability was a sword-type offensive divine ability. It was also the divine ability that Duan Lingtian dreamed of. Earlier, when Duan Lingtian could not see any hope, he was very open-minded. However, now that he saw hope, naturally, Duan Lingtian did not want to miss it. I'll do my best to kill him and obtain his divine ability. If I still can't defeat him even after using all my strength, I'll have no regrets. A crazy will was rapidly brewing in Duan Lingtian's mind. Under the urging of this crazy will, Duan Lingtian's figure moved. The 3-foot-long sword in his hand trembled and shot out like lightning, meeting the sword of the white-clothed youth that was descending from the sky. Whoosh! The power contained in the white-clad young man's sword was comparable to the power of an intermediate eminent saint stage powerhouse. Although Duan Lingtian had also used his full strength, his sword was still much weaker than the white-clothed youth's sword. Whoosh! Whoosh! The resplendent golden light that covered the 3-foot-long blade finally collided with the 3-foot-long blade in the hands of the white-clothed young man. Sword tip against sword tip, a wild and violent energy surged out from both directions. The collision caused the surrounding space to tremble, as though it could split apart at any moment. What a strong power! As they clashed, Duan Lingtian immediately realized how terrifying the white-clothed youth's sword was. The energy in the white-clothed youth's sword had completely suppressed the energy in the sword in his hand. Not only that, but the energy even surged into his hand and into his body through the sword in his hand. This energy was majestic and vast. As soon as it entered his body, it began to wreak havoc as though it was trying to damage his internal organs. Even though Duan Lingtian had hastily mobilized the remaining Sun True Origin in his body, it was still difficult for him to withstand this energy. Oh no! Duan Lingtian's body jolted as horror dawned on his face. Wang Fei Xian, who was watching the battle from a distance away, could not interfere since the beginning. When she saw Duan Lingtian and the white-clad young man colliding head-on with each other and seemed to be at a disadvantage, horror dawned on her face. At the same time, she charged toward the white-clad young man as though she had transformed into a gust of wind. She was an intermediate refined saint stage martial cultivator after all. The power of Wang Fei Xian's attack was not weak at all. Even someone as powerful as the white-clothed youth had to withdraw a portion of his energy in time when faced with Wang Feixian's attack. He condensed the energy into a sword qi and shot it toward Wang Feixian. Swish, swish. The crisp sound of sword whistling rang in the air as the sword qi pierced through Wang Feixian's body. From the beginning until the end, Wang Feixian did not even have time to react. It's too fast. This was the only thought that remained in Wang Feixian's mind before her clone was vaporized. Ling Tian, you can do it. Wang Feixian thought to herself as her divine consciousness left her clone and returned to her main body. She was sent out of the Saint Martial secret zone. When Wang Feixian's clone was killed by the white-clothed young man, Duan Lingtian, who was originally in deep trouble, had a chance to catch his breath since the white-clothed young man had withdrawn a portion of his energy in time. It was during this moment that Duan Lingtian suddenly recalled the profundity of the second stage of the Sovereign Heart Sword. The sword follows the heart. The sword follows the heart. The energy that the white-clothed young man had channeled into Duan Lingtian's body was mainly boosted by a sword-type divine ability after all. Due to this reason, it was also a sword energy. Duan Lingtian's Sovereign Heart Sword was a supreme sword Dao mental cultivation method. Although he had not cultivated it to the highest stage yet, when he activated the mental cultivation method to the second stage of the Sovereign Heart Sword, it only took him a moment to expel the energy the white-clothed young man had left in his body. At this moment, Wang Feixian's clone was vaporized. Die. Duan Lingtian's eyes turned cold. Before the white-clothed young man could fully focus on him, the 3-foot-long blade in his hand began to tremble violently. At this moment, the profundity of the second stage of the Sovereign Heart Sword guided the Sun true origin and the energy that belonged to the white-clothed young man that had been expelled by Duan Lingtian to gather on the 3-foot-long blade in his hand. It was like a raging WYRM charging out of its nest as it charged toward the white-clothed young man. Whoosh! As soon as the sword was unleashed, its sharp aura revealed a hint of coldness, causing the temperature in the surroundings to drop a little. Duan Lingtian's sword finally pierced through the white-clothed young man's body. However, there was no bloody scene as the white-clothed young man was vaporized immediately. It's finally over. After killing the white-clothed young man, Duan Lingtian heaved a sigh of relief. When he recalled the scene earlier, fear still lingered in his heart. Fortunately, I activated the second stage of the Sovereign Heart Sword's mental cultivation method at the critical moment and expelled all of his energy from his body. However, it's also thanks to Wang Feixian. If she hadn't distracted him, I might not have been able to expel his energy even if I activated the mental cultivation method of the Sovereign Heart Sword. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. Crash! Suddenly, the sound of something shattering rang in the air. Following that, Duan Lingtian raised his head. With just a glance, he saw a crack in the air. Behind the crack was a gigantic stone sword. The stone sword fell from the sky with the tip of the sword pointed downward and stabbed firmly into the ground. It's not a stone tablet. According to Duan Lingtian's past experience, apart from the elementary devouring tactic, almost all of the divine abilities he obtained were recorded in stone tablets. This was the first time he had seen a stone sword. However, when his divine consciousness entered the stone sword, he quickly realized the stone sword was the same as the stone tablet. They were both carriers of divine abilities. It's indeed a sword-type offensive divine ability, high-grade divine ability, otherworldly celestial. After his divine consciousness entered the stone sword, Duan Lingtian quickly found out what divine ability the white-clothed young man had used earlier. Otherworldly celestial, it lives up to its name. Previously, when the white-clothed young man descended from the sky, it was indeed as though he was a sword celestial that had descended from the 9 heavens. Perhaps it was because Duan Lingtian had cultivated the Supreme Sword Dao mental cultivation method, the Sovereign Heart Sword. It only took him half a day to memorize all of the information about the divine ability, otherworldly celestial. With just a thought, he could take it out to cultivate and comprehend it. I've gained quite a lot from this trip to the Saint Martial secret zone. With a flash, the divine ability relic vanished. Duan Lingtian returned to the place where he discovered the entrance of the divine ability relic. There's only one day left. Let's meditate for a day. After calculating the time, Duan Lingtian found out the Saint Martial secret zone would send him out the next day. For this reason, he sat down cross-legged and waited for the Saint Martial secret zone to send him out the next day. Outside the Saint Martial secret zone, Wang Feixian's appearance had attracted many people's attention. Among the 30 people who entered the Saint Martial secret zone, there were only 5 people left before Wang Feixian came out. Now that Wang Feixian had come out, it meant there were only 4 people left in the Saint Martial secret zone. Miss Feixian. When Lu Jian saw Wang Feixian coming out, he immediately went up to her with a guilty expression on his face. I'm sorry. I'm too weak. I couldn't help you. He and Wang Feixian had discovered 2 divine ability relics together. Wang Feixian had passed the first divine ability relic and let him have the divine ability. However, they did not have the ability to pass the second divine ability relic. He was even killed and eliminated. You don't have to apologize. The reason I let you have the divine ability is to repay a favor to Ling Tian's elder. From today onward, Ling Tian no longer owes you or your elder any favors. Do you understand? Wang Feixian said as she looked at Lu Jian indifferently. Yes. Lu Jian nodded. In the past, he did not know the reason Duan Lingtian wanted to work with him was to repay a favor to his elder. However, he already knew the reason now. Not only that, but when the relationship between Duan Lingtian and Li Feng was exposed, he knew Duan Lingtian wanted to help Li Feng repay a favor to his elder. His elder was none other than Lu Hongguang, the second elder of Raging Wave Mansion. Little girl from the Wang clan, did you encounter Ling Tian in the Saint Martial secret zone? Zhu Luqi, the palace master of Heaven Palace, asked as he looked at Wang Feixian with a glint in his eyes. Everyone present on the scene was very curious about Duan Lingtian's situation in the Saint Martial secret zone. They were curious because Duan Lingtian had entered the #1 divine ability relic in the mystical Sky Mansion's Saint Martial secret zone alone, but he was not eliminated. There must be something fishy going on. All of them wanted to know how Duan Lingtian managed to escape from the divine ability relic. Yes. Wang Feixian did not know why Zhu Luqi asked this. However, she still nodded in response. I was with him for the next 20 days. Chapter 1792. Did you hear him mention that he encountered an extremely difficult divine ability relic? Do you know how he managed to escape from there? Qian Pingsheng, the palace master of Yellow Palace, asked curiously as he looked at Wang Feixian. Extremely difficult divine ability relic? Escape? Wang Feixian frowned and shook her head. I didn't hear him mention it. It seems like he didn't tell you about it. In that case, we can only wait for him to tell us tomorrow. Qian Pingsheng nodded before continuing. As time passed, another person was eliminated half a day later. This person was also a Heaven Palace's disciple. He was none other than Gao Peng, the strongest Heaven Palace's disciple among the younger generation in Heaven Palace apart from Duan Lingtian, Wang Feixian, and Zhao Ji. Gao Peng was an intermediate refined saint stage martial cultivator. However, when he came out, his expression was extremely grave. How could he look good? He had almost passed the last trial of the medium-grade divine ability relic. However, due to a small mistake, he was killed by the guardian of the last trial with his divine ability. Due to this reason, he did not obtain any medium-grade divine ability at all. He only obtained a few low-grade divine abilities. After Gao Peng came out, no one else came out earlier. It was only on the second day that 3 figures finally appeared in the Saint Martial secret zone. I'm out. One of the 3 figures was Duan Lingtian. After he came out, he sighed in relief and stretched his body as though no one was around. At the same time, he noticed the 2 people next to him. These 2 people were not Heaven Palace's disciples. However, under his divine eye, both of their cultivation bases were exposed. They were both at the intermediate refined saint stage. It seems like they're the other 2 intermediate refined saint stage disciples in the mystical Sky Mansion. Duan Lingtian had long heard that in the mystical Sky Mansion, apart from Zhao Ji and Gao Peng from Heaven Palace, there were 2 other intermediate refined saint stage disciples in Earth Palace and Mystical Palace. As for the younger generation in Yellow Palace, There was no one at the intermediate refined saint stage or above. Huh. As soon as Duan Lingtian came out, he noticed the group of people outside were looking at him. What happened? Duan Lingtian looked at Wang Fei Xian, who was standing behind the Sky Hall's hall master, and asked, "They all want to know how you escaped from the Saint Martial Secret Zone's number 1 Divine Ability Relic." Wang Fei Xian replied, "Why haven't I heard you mention the number 1 Divine Ability Relic before?" The number 1 Divine Ability Relic? Duan Lingtian was at a loss. What was that? It's said to be a divine ability relic with an extremely high difficulty. In the history of the mystical Sky Mansion, nobody has ever passed the first trial of that divine ability relic. Wang Feixian said, in the history of the mystical Sky Mansion, nobody had ever passed the first trial of the divine ability relic. Upon hearing Wang Feixian's words, Duan Lingtian immediately thought of the Abyssal Swamp. The first trial of the Abyssal Swamp was definitely the most monstrous first trial of all the divine ability relic he had encountered in there. Unless one was a young powerhouse whose strength was comparable to an eminent saint stage powerhouse, it was impossible for one to pass that trial. That wild beast tribe was extremely terrifying. Duan Lingtian exchanged a few more words with Wang Feixian and finally confirmed that the number 1 divine ability relic in the mystical Sky Mansion's Saint Martial Secret Zone was the Abyssal Swamp. Under the circumstances where they don't know what kind of divine ability is contained in the Abyssal Swamp, they actually acknowledge the divine ability as the number 1 divine ability in the mystical Sky Mansion's Saint Martial Secret Zone. Duan Lingtian did not expect the divine ability he obtained, the elementary devouring tactic, would have such a title. However, all of them want to know how I escaped from the first trial of the Abyssal Swamp. Does this mean nobody thinks I've passed the trial and obtained the divine ability? Duan Lingtian thought to himself. If I tell them I obtained the divine ability, the elementary devouring tactic, in the Abyssal Swamp, would the mystical Sky Mansion imprison me and not allow me to leave? Duan Lingtian had not thought about this before he came out. However, after he came out and realized the significance of the elementary devouring tactic to the mystical Sky Mansion, this thought appeared in his mind. Although he was grateful to the mystical Sky Mansion for allowing him to obtain the elementary devouring tactic, he did not plan to stay in the mystical Sky Mansion forever. At the latest, he would leave the mystical Sky Mansion and head to the upper province of the Dao Martial Saintland after his cultivation base had broken through to the eminent saint stage. The moment Duan Lingtian thought of this, he decided not to tell them he had obtained the elementary devouring tactic. Faced with the question from Qian Pingsheng, the palace master of Yellow Palace, Duan Lingtian's expression turned solemn as he said, "When I was in the swamp, I felt that something was amiss, so I chose to leave immediately. Now that I think about it, if I was a little later, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been able to escape when the entire group of wild beasts came out." When Duan Lingtian reached the end of his sentence, he sighed in relief. However, a hint of fear could still be seen on his face. "So that's how it is. You're really lucky." Qian Pingsheng did not doubt Duan Lingtian's answer at all. The others had similar thoughts as well, since they did not think Duan Lingtian would be able to pass the first trial of the divine ability relic. Humph, he's really afraid of death. That group of wild beasts hasn't even come out, and he chose to run away. At this moment, a discordant voice resonated in the air. The person who spoke was none other than Zhaoji. "No matter how afraid of death I am, it's still better than someone who was eliminated after entering for only 3 days." Duan Lingtian replied with a faint smile in response to Zhaoji's sarcastic words. The moment Duan Lingtian's words left his mouth, many people present on the scene could not help but twitch their mouths. Lingtian really knew how to rub salt into their wounds. However, they did not blame Lingtian. If they had to blame someone, they could only blame Zhaoji for speaking rudely. Otherwise, why would Lingtian expose his scars in public and slap his face? "You." Zhaoji's expression changed drastically. When he heard Duan Lingtian's words, horror dawned on Zhaoji's face. Just as he was about to say something, his father, Zhao Deng, sent him a voice transmission to remind him, causing him to shut his mouth immediately. He said to Duan Lingtian through voice transmission, "Lingtian, you and I are absolutely irreconcilable. In the mystical Sky Mansion, it's either you or me. Of course, It's either you or me. Duan Lingtian replied indifferently through voice transmission. It was as though he did not take Zhao Ji's threats seriously at all. Hermph, just you wait. Zhao Ji snorted coldly through voice transmission, but he did not say anything else. However, his eyes that were looking at Duan Lingtian seemed as though they would burst into flames at any moment. Although Zhao Deng, who was standing next to Zhao Ji, did not say anything, there was a hint of coldness in the depth of his eyes as he looked at Duan Lingtian. If looks could kill, Duan Lingtian would have been cut into 1,000 pieces a long time ago. Naturally, Duan Lingtian noticed the vicious gaze of the father and son from the Zhao clan. However, he was not bothered by it at all. Previously, when he slapped Zhao Ji twice at the peak of the Heaven Palace, he was already mentally prepared to stand on the opposite side of the Zhao clan. Due to this reason, when he encountered Zhao Ji in the St. Martial Secret Zone, he immediately killed Zhao Ji's clone and eliminated Zhao Ji. Since he had already offended them, it did not matter if he offended them further. Huh, who's this? Duan Lingtian suddenly noticed an unfamiliar gaze staring at him. When he turned around, he saw a skinny old man standing in the distance and looking at him quietly. This was his first time meeting this old man. He was not one of the mystical Sky Mansion's high-ranking officials whom he had met earlier. Elder Ku, now that you've seen him, according to what you said earlier, shouldn't you leave now? Zhu Luqi, the palace master of Heaven Palace, asked nonchalantly as he looked at Kumi. Elder Ku? A hint of surprise could be seen in Duan Lingtian's eyes. It seemed like this old man was not from the mystical Sky Mansion. Otherwise, Zhu Luqi, the palace master of Heaven Palace, would not have spoken to him in such a manner. At the same time, Duan Lingtian noticed a hint of disappointment could be seen in the skinny old man's eyes when he looked at him. What's he disappointed about? Duan Lingtian was puzzled by this. This was his first time meeting the old man. What was there to be disappointed about? Naturally, Duan Lingtian was unaware that the old man standing in front of him was none other than Kumi, one of the two capable subordinates of his cheapskate father, Duan Rufeng. The reason Kumi was disappointed was because he noticed Duan Lingtian was not in disguise. He's not the young mansion master. Kumi had seen Duan Lingtian's portrait before. When he compared the current Duan Lingtian, he knew the current Duan Lingtian was not the young mansion master he was looking for. However, it did not cross Kumi's mind that the young man standing in front of him was the young mansion master he was looking for. However, the young mansion master had used the disguising secret tactic to disguise himself without leaving any traces behind. That was why he looked like this without any traces of disguise at all. Mansion Master Ming, farewell. Faced with Zhu Luqi's overbearing attitude, Kumi completely ignored him. Instead, he looked at the mansion master of Mystical Sky Mansion, Ming Qing, who was standing nearby, and bade him farewell before leaving. When Kumi left, he disappeared into thin air before most people's eyes. Among the people present on the scene, Ming Qing was the only one who could clearly see Kumi's figure when he left. What a fast speed! The group of Mystical Sky Mansion's high-ranking officials present on the scene had a solemn expression on their faces. They had a new understanding of the strength of the Azure Cloud Mansion's powerhouse, Kumi. Kumi's strength was far above theirs. Subsequently, it was time to report their gains. Apart from Duan Lingtian, who planned to keep it a secret, the others reported their gains. The number of divine abilities and the grade of the divine abilities they obtained would affect their status in the Mystical Sky Mansion in the future. Those who obtained a high-grade divine ability would, naturally, be nurtured by the Mystical Sky Mansion. High-grade divine ability? When it was Wang Fei Xian's turn to report, she revealed the high-grade movement divine ability, the 1,000 illusory shadows, that she had obtained. It shocked everyone present on the scene. Chapter 1793. High-grade divine ability. Wang Fei Xian was the first person to say she had obtained a high-grade divine ability, the 1,000 illusory shadows. In the history of our Mystical Sky Mansion, there was a senior who had obtained it before. However, since he was a man, he didn't manage to master the divine ability. However, according to the letter he left behind, if a female disciple obtained this divine ability, there's a high chance she would be able to master it. At this moment, Qin Pingsheng, the palace master of Yellow Palace, spoke up. The group of mystical sky mansion's high-ranking officials stared at Wang Fei Xian with burning eyes. Wang Fei Xian was a female martial artist. Did this not mean she would be able to master the high-grade divine ability in the future? Senior brother Zhu, why don't you give this girl to our Yellow Palace? Soon after, Qian Ping Sheng looked at Zhu Luqi and began to poach him. I'm interested in taking her as my direct disciple. Junior brother Qian, it's too late. I've already decided to take this girl as my direct disciple. After learning that Wang Fei Xian had obtained the high-grade movement divine ability, the 1,000 illusory shadows, Zhu Luqi, naturally, would not allow her to join the Yellow Palace. For this reason, when he heard Qian Ping Sheng's words, he immediately expressed his intention to take Wang Fei Xian as his direct disciple. Upon hearing Zhu Luqi's words, Wang Fei Xian's eyes lit up immediately. She had revealed that she had obtained a high-grade divine ability, so she could be nurtured better by the mystical sky mansion. Now that the palace master of Heaven Palace wanted to take her as his direct disciple, she had already achieved her goal. The palace master of Heaven Palace was the leader of the group of vice mansion masters in the mystical sky mansion. His strength and status in the mystical sky mansion was second only to the mansion master of mystical sky mansion and the two great guardians. Naturally, Wang Fei Xian was happy to become his direct disciple. How is it? Girl, are you willing to acknowledge me as your master? Zhu Luqi ignored Qian Ping Sheng, who had a bitter expression on his face. He immediately looked at Wang Fei Xian and asked with a smile. Greetings, master. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Wang Fei Xian knelt down in the air and kowtowed 3 times to Zhu Luqi, which could be considered the ceremony of apprenticeship. Haha. Seeing this, Zhu Luqi laughed heartily and was very happy. Congratulations, senior brother Zhu. Congratulations, palace master. At the same time, everyone present congratulated Zhu Luqi, including Qian Ping Sheng, the palace master of the Yellow Palace. Although his heart was bleeding, he could only accept his fate. In fact, it was not only Qian Ping Sheng, the palace master of the Yellow Palace, whose heart was bleeding. Among the mystical sky mansion's vice mansion masters present on the scene, apart from Zhao Deng, felt their hearts bleeding as well. Who wouldn't want an outstanding disciple who obtained a high-grade divine ability? However, among the group of mystical sky mansion's high-ranking officials present on the scene, Mansion Master Mengqing was the only one who could compete with Zhu Luqi, the palace master of Heaven Palace. Due to this reason, when Zhu Luqi said he wanted to take Wang Fei Xian as his direct disciple, they had a tacit understanding and did not interrupt since they knew it would be useless even if they did. Congratulations. Duan Lingtian looked at Wang Fei Xian and promptly sent a voice transmission to congratulate her. That day, after I was eliminated, did you manage to defeat that white-clad sword cultivator? Wang Fei Xian asked through voice transmission. That day, she was killed by the guardian of the final trial of the high-grade divine ability relic. The strength of that guardian was beyond her imagination. Even she was not certain if Duan Lingtian had passed that trial or not. Yes. Duan Lingtian nodded. I managed to defeat him by luck. In that case, you must have obtained a high-grade divine ability as well? Wang Fei Xian asked. Yes. Duan Lingtian nodded before he continued to say, however, I hope you can. You hope I can keep it a secret for you, right? Don't worry, I won't tell anyone. Before Duan Lingtian could finish speaking, Wang Fei Xian interrupted Duan Lingtian considerately and promised, you have to leave the mystical sky mansion in the future and go to the upper province to look for your master. If they find out you've obtained a high-grade divine ability, they might not let you go. Thank you. Duan Lingtian felt warmth in his heart when he heard Wang Fei Xian's considerate words, and he thanked her through voice transmission. What are you thanking me for? If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have been able to obtain the 1,000 illusory shadows. Wang Fei Xian rolled her eyes at Duan Lingtian before she continued to say, therefore, we're even now. However, I've helped you return the favor to Lu Jian Sr., but the favor you owe me can't be considered as being returned. Duan Lingtian was dumbfounded when he heard Wang Fei Xian's words. Could it not be considered as being returned? At this moment, Duan Lingtian was tempted to tell her that he had obtained a high-grade divine ability. In that case, he would no longer owe Wang Feixian a favor. However, he did not say it in the end. Duan Lingtian's strength was undoubtedly the strongest among the group of people who had entered the Saint Martial secret zone. Everyone present on the scene was looking forward to the divine ability he had obtained. However, sometimes, the higher one's expectations were, the greater the disappointment. A medium-grade divine ability? When they found out Duan Lingtian had only obtained a medium-grade divine ability and a few low-grade divine abilities, most of the mystical Sky Mansion's high-ranking officials, including Mansion Master Meng Qing, were disappointed. Only the people from the Zhao clan were gloating. Why didn't you obtain a high-grade divine ability? With your strength, an ordinary high-grade divine ability relic shouldn't pose a problem to you. Qian Pingsheng, the palace master of Yellow Palace, looked at Duan Lingtian in shock. He found it hard to believe. I only encountered 2 high-grade divine ability relics. Duan Lingtian shook his head and said, the first one is the number 1 divine ability relic. The second one is the divine ability relic where the 1,000 illusory shadows is recorded. In that case, you're the one who gave the 1,000 illusory shadows to Feixian? Zhu Luqi, the palace master of Heaven Palace, looked at Duan Lingtian with a hint of admiration in his eyes. He felt Duan Lingtian knew how to make the right choice. Compared to female martial artists, the 1,000 illusory shadows was much more difficult for male martial artists to master. Giving it to a female was the right choice. Actually, it's not that. Just as Duan Lingtian was about to say it was not that he gave it to Wang Feixian, Wang Feixian interrupted him. That's right, master. He was the one who gave it to me. If it wasn't for his help, I wouldn't have obtained that divine ability at all. Apart from Zhao Ding, the group of mystical Sky Mansion's high-ranking officials, including Mansion Master Meng Qing, looked at Duan Lingtian with a hint of admiration in their eyes. Their thoughts were the same as Zhu Luqi. They felt Duan Lingtian had made the right choice. Not everyone is able to give up on a high-grade divine ability. Lingtian, you're really good. One of the vice mansion masters of Mystical Sky Mansion praised him. That's right. In the future, if our Mystical Sky Mansion manages to obtain the high-grade divine ability, the 1,000 illusory shadows, it'll be all thanks to you. At that time, your name will definitely leave a mark in our Mystical Sky Mansion's history and be passed down for generations to come. Another Vice Mansion Master of Mystical Sky Mansion chimed in. As the Mystical Sky Mansion's disciples revealed their gains one by one, among the 30 people who entered the Saint Martial secret zone, only Wang Feixian alone obtained a high-grade divine ability. Naturally, this was under the premise that Duan Lingtian had concealed his gains. Apart from that, among the 30 people who entered the Saint Martial secret zone, Lu Jin was the only one whose cultivation base was below the refined saint stage who obtained a medium-grade divine ability. At this moment, the disciples at the peak of the pristine saint stage present on the scene looked at Lu Jin enviously. Apart from Zhao Ji, who was eliminated by Duan Lingtian, among the intermediate refined saint stage martial cultivators who entered the Saint Martial secret zone, apart from Wang Feixian, there were 2 others who obtained a medium-grade divine ability. Gao Peng was the only one who did not obtain a medium-grade divine ability like Zhao Ji. Naturally, he was slightly stronger than Zhao Ji and obtained 3 low-grade divine abilities. On the other hand, there were a few other early refined saint stage powerhouses who obtained a medium-grade divine ability as well. This result caused Gao Peng and Zhao Ji's expression to turn grave. No matter what, some people were happy about this trip to the Saint Martial secret zone while others were sad. Duan Lingtian, on the other hand, was, naturally, happy. Until the moment Meng Qing, the mansion master of Mystical Sky Mansion, ordered everyone to leave, he did not say anything about wanting to take Duan Lingtian as his disciple. Upon seeing this, Duan Lingtian heaved a sigh of relief. It seems like the news that was spread out by the others has made the mansion master of Mystical Sky Mansion dismiss the idea of taking me in as his disciple. This is good as well since I won't be staying in the Mystical Sky Mansion for long anyway. However, if I manage to master the divine abilities, the elementary devouring tactic, and the otherworldly celestial in the future, I'll find a chance to teach them to the Mystical Sky Mansion's disciples. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. Thank you, Senior Brother Lingtian. Duan Lingtian left with Gu Li and Wang Fei Xian. The three of them had not gone far when Lu Jian caught up to them and thanked Duan Lingtian respectfully. If it was not for Duan Lingtian, Wang Fei Xian would not have helped him obtain the medium-grade divine ability. There's no need to thank me. If you want to thank someone, you should thank Elder Lu Hongguang from the Raging Wave Mansion. Also, please tell Elder Lu Hongguang that Li Feng did not intentionally stand him up that day. He just happened to have something to do. Duan Lingtian said, I'll definitely tell him. Lu Jian quickly nodded before he bade farewell and left, no longer bothering Duan Lingtian. Junior brother Lingtian, you're really unlucky. Although you've come across 2 high-grade divine ability relics, it's impossible to pass one of them. The other one has a divine ability that's not suitable for a male martial cultivator. On the way, Gu Li glanced at Duan Lingtian and sighed. If it's meant to be, it will be. If it's not meant to be, don't force it. Duan Lingtian smiled faintly when he heard Gu Li's sigh. When Gu Li heard this, he thought Duan Lingtian had accepted his fate. However, when Wang Fei Xian heard this, it had a different meaning. This was because she knew Duan Lingtian had obtained a high-grade sword-type offensive divine ability. Boom! All of a sudden, a loud explosion resonated in the sky. It shocked Duan Lingtian and the other 2 so much that they came to a halt. Following that, a sinister voice resonated in the air and spread through the entire mystical sky mansion. I'm Feng Bu Yi, the deputy leader of the Mountain Shade Black Market. I'm passing by the mystical sky mansion to meet the strongest person among the younger generation in the mystical sky mansion, Ling Tian. Little brother Ling Tian, please come out and meet me. The deputy leader of the Mountain Shade Black Market. Feng Bu Yi. A commotion instantly broke out in the mystical sky mansion. He's looking for me? Chapter 1794. It's actually Feng Bu Yi, the deputy leader of the Mountain Shade Black Market. He's the right-hand man of the Mountain Shade Black Market's leader. It's said that his strength is not inferior to our mystical sky mansion's 2 great guardians. Feng Bu Yi did not bother to conceal his voice. It spread through the entire mystical sky mansion. Almost all of the mystical sky mansion's disciples who were not in closed-door cultivation heard his voice. Is he here for Ling Tian? It seems like Ling Tian's innate talent has already alerted the Mountain Shade Black Market. Even the deputy leader of the Mountain Shade Black Market, Feng Bu Yi, has personally come to poach him. Ling Tian hasn't acknowledged anyone as his master in our mystical sky mansion yet. If Feng Bu Yi poaches him away, it'll be a great loss to our mystical sky mansion. It's said that once Ling Tian has broken through to the eminent saint stage, he'll head to the upper province. He's currently a martial cultivator at the peak of the refined saint stage. He's only a step away from entering the eminent saint stage. Perhaps it was because of this that Lord Mansion Master, who originally wanted to take him as a disciple, didn't take action. That's right. With Ling Tian's innate talent, he'll definitely be able to break through to the eminent saint stage in 1 or 2 years. He won't be staying in our mystical sky mansion for long. I'm afraid Feng Bu Yi, the deputy leader of the Mountain Shade Black Market, has come in vain this time. If I were Ling Tian, I definitely wouldn't go to the Mountain Shade Black Market. After all, I'll be heading to the upper province soon. The group of mystical sky mansion's disciples discussed among themselves. Nobody thought Feng Bu Yi would be able to poach Duan Lingtian to the Mountain Shade Black Market. The appearance of Feng Bu Yi, the deputy leader of the Mountain Shade Black Market, had, naturally, alerted the group of mystical sky mansion's high-ranking officials. Other than Meng Qing, the mansion master of mystical sky mansion, the other mystical sky mansion's vice mansion masters who had just left and had yet to return to their respective places of cultivation soared up into the sky and flew toward the source of the voice. Deputy Chief Feng. Since Meng Qing was not present, the group of mystical sky mansion's vice mansion masters was, naturally, led by Zhu Luqi, who was also the palace master of Heaven Palace. Zhu Luqi stood near Feng Bu Yi and greeted him nonchalantly. Feng Bu Yi was an old man dressed in black. He had a medium build and an ordinary face. He was the kind of person who would not stand out in a crowd. Feng Bu Yi's grayish-white hair fluttered in the wind like snakes, giving off a sinister feeling. Humph! Feng Bui merely snorted indifferently when Zhu Luqi took the initiative to greet him. From the beginning until the end, he did not even look at Zhu Luqi at all. I came to the mystical sky mansion for little brother Ling Tian. Don't make a fuss in front of me if you have no business here. You, impudent. Facing Feng Bui's disregard, Zhu Luqi's face turned red. After a long while, he spat out 2 words. Impudent? Upon hearing Zhu Luqi's words, Feng Bui sneered. Then, without any movement, he vanished into thin air as though he had vanished into thin air. When the group of mystical sky mansion's high-ranking officials, including Zhu Luqi, saw this, their expressions changed. Slap. Almost at the same time, the crisp sound of a slap resonated in the air. Feng Bui, who had appeared in front of Zhu Luqi, had raised his hand and slapped Zhu Luqi. Who do you think you are to speak to me in this manner? At the same time, Feng Bui's sinister voice resonated in the air. The dignified palace master of Mystical Sky Mansion's Heaven Palace, the leader of the Mystical Sky Mansion's Vice Mansion Masters, was slapped in public. Naturally, Zhu Luqi was enraged. He immediately made his move at lightning speed. A vast energy transformed into a palm print that shrouded Feng Bui, who was standing in front of him. A mantis trying to stop a chariot. Faced with Zhu Luqi's attack, Feng Bui's expression remained unchanged. He said disdainfully as he also struck his palm out to meet Zhu Luqi's palm. Boom! In just a blink of an eye, the 2 palms collided with each other. 2 powerful forces collided and set off an earth-shattering explosion. It even caused the clouds in the surroundings to disperse, creating a vacuum. At once, the people who were originally hidden behind the clouds appeared before the group of Mystical Sky Mansion's disciples on the ground. Zhu Luqi's expression turned grave when he saw Feng Bui's palm strike head-on. His body trembled before he was sent flying out like an arrow. He only managed to stabilize himself after flying out for 100 meters. On the other hand, Feng Bui stood in his original spot without moving at all. He's actually so strong. Zhu Luqi, whose internal organs were shaken, felt a sweetness in his throat. However, he endured it and did not throw up the blood. His dignity and pride made him unwilling to throw up the blood in front of so many people. When the other Mystical Sky Mansion's Vice Mansion Masters saw this, they could not help but feel chills running up their spines. Their strength was slightly weaker than Zhu Luqi. Even Zhu Luqi was not a match for Feng Bui, let alone them. Due to this reason, although they were furious when they saw Zhu Luqi was injured, they did not dare to show it on their faces. As the deputy leader of the Mountain Shade Black Market, Feng Bui was temperamental. He was capable of doing anything. None of them were willing to offend him for fear they would end up like Zhu Luqi. In your Mystical Sky Mansion, only Mansion Master Mengqing and those 2 old fellows are quite strong. To put it bluntly, apart from the 3 of them, I, Feng Bui, really don't care about the others, including all of you. Feng Bui glanced at Zhu Luqi and the others disdainfully before he said indifferently, All right, I'm not here to teach all of you a lesson. Go and summon that genius from your Mystical Sky Mansion, Ling Tian. I have something to ask of him. When Feng Bui reached the end of his sentence, it sounded as though he was ordering Zhu Luqi and the others. At this moment, apart from Zhu Luqi, who ignored him, the other Mystical Sky Mansion's Vice Mansion Masters looked at each other but did not say anything. What? None of you are willing to run this errand for me? Upon seeing this, Feng Bui narrowed his eyes. A cold gleam flashed in his eyes, scaring the few Mystical Sky Mansion's Vice Mansion Masters. There's no need to trouble the few Vice Mansion Masters. I'm already here. Just when the atmosphere was heavy and on the verge of breaking out, a voice sounded. It was Duan Ling Tian, who was flying over from afar. Gu Li and Wang Feixian were standing next to him. Master, are you all right? Wang Feixian was the first to arrive next to Zhu Luqi. She asked with a concerned expression on her face. I'm fine. Zhu Luqi shook his head. When he looked at Feng Bui again, his eyes were filled with killing intent. Feng Bui actually dared to teach him a lesson in front of the direct disciple he had just accepted, causing him to lose all his face. At Zhu Luqi's age, he valued his face more than anything else. Feng Bui's actions earlier made him feel even worse than killing him. However, currently, Feng Bui did not even look at Zhu Luqi. He completely ignored Zhu Luqi. His gaze landed on Duan Lingtian. His eyes gleamed as he said condescendingly, "You're Ling Tian, the strongest person among the younger generation in the mystical sky mansion?" "I don't dare to say I'm the strongest person among the younger generation in the mystical sky mansion, but I'm indeed Ling Tian." Duan Lingtian replied indifferently. The strength Feng Bui had displayed earlier had taken him by surprise. He did not expect the vice leader of the Mountain Shade Black Market to be so powerful. However, he was extremely calm when he faced Feng Bui. Although Feng Bui was powerful, he was nothing in front of Hua Lao, who was in the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda. Hua Lao could be considered as a powerhouse in the Devata realms. Duan Lingtian was able to remain calm when he faced Hua Lao, let alone a mere vice leader of a WCI subterranean force. From the beginning until the end, he did not feel pressured at all. "Ling Tian, I won't beat around the bush. I'm here on the orders of the Mountain Shade Black Market's leader, Lord Dugu. Lord Dugu intends to invite you to join our Mountain Shade Black Market. If you can prove your worth, Lord Dugu is willing to accept you as his direct disciple." A hint of admiration could be seen in Feng Buyi's eyes when he saw how calm Duan Lingtian was in front of him. Duan Lingtian was stunned when he heard Feng Buyi's words. The leader of the Mountain Shade Black Market? Inviting him to join the Mountain Shade Black Market? Since when was he so popular? Zhu Luqi and the others were shocked as well. In the end, Feng Bui was only a messenger. The person who wanted to poach their mystical sky mansion's disciple was actually the leader of the Mountain Shade Black Market. Leader Dugu of the Mountain Shade Black Market was widely acknowledged as one of the strongest powerhouses in the WCI Subterranean. The other strongest powerhouse in the WCI Subterranean was Duan Rufeng, the mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion. Most importantly, just like Duan Rufeng, Dugu was not very old. They still had a lot of room for growth in the future. In the WCI Subterranean, they could only be considered as passers-by. With their innate talent, it was only a matter of time before they went to the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land to shine. However, although leader Dugu of the Mountain Shade Black Market was young, he was a great deterrent to Zhu Luqi and the others. Due to this reason, when Feng Bui said he was here on leader Dugu's order, Zhu Luqi and the others remained silent. If they offended leader Dugu, even if they were in the Mystical Sky Mansion and had the protection of the Mansion Master of Mystical Sky Mansion, it would be easy for him to kill them. Leader Dugu's strength was originally above the Mansion Master of Mystical Sky Mansion. Coupled with the fact that he was the leader of the Mountain Shade Black Market, he was skilled in assassination. If he wanted to kill them, it would be as easy as crushing an ant. Deputy Leader Feng, I'm sorry. Please help me tell Master Dugu that I have no intention of joining the Mountain Shade Black Market since I won't be staying in the Mystical Sky Mansion for long. Moreover, I already have a master. I'll leave the lower province in 2 to 3 years to look for my master in the upper province. Duan Lingtian politely declined Feng Buyi's invitation. Even Feng Bui did not expect the young man before him would reject him so directly. He had said he was here on the order of leader Dugu of the Mountain Shade Black Market. Was this brat not afraid he would offend the Mountain Shade Black Market and be killed? Feng Bui did not doubt Duan Lingtian's words at the end. This was because he had heard a lot about Duan Lingtian from the other Mystical Sky Mansion's disciples in the past 2 months. Chapter 1795. After learning that this young man's master was a powerhouse from the upper province, even Feng Bui, the deputy leader of the Mountain Shade Black Market, had to be cautious. He was already mentally prepared for this, so he was not surprised. Since this Ling Tian will leave the Mystical Sky Mansion in the lower province in 3 years, he's not a threat to our Mountain Shade Black Market. The moment Feng Bui thought of this, he glanced at Duan Lingtian indifferently before leaving. According to the Mountain Shade Black Market's leader's order, if this Ling Tian was unwilling to join the Mountain Shade Black Market, he would have to kill him to prevent future troubles. However, the situation was different now. He did not dare to make the decision himself. After all, it seemed like this Ling Tian had a master who was a powerhouse from the upper province. Due to this reason, he would have to report this matter to the Mountain Shade Black Market's leader before he could decide whether to kill this Ling Tian or not. When they saw Feng Bui leaving just like that, Apart from Zhu Luqi, the palace master of Heaven Palace, whose expression was still grave, the other mystical sky mansion's vice mansion masters sighed in relief and left one after another, returning to their respective cultivation places. Before Zhao Ding left, he glanced at Duan Ling Tian with killing intent from the corner of his eyes. Junior brother Ling Tian, you've offended the Zhao clan. You must be careful in the future. If there's nothing important, try not to go out. Even if you want to go out, you must inform me first. I'll go with you. With me around, I don't think they'll dare to do anything to you so openly. Guli reminded Duan Ling Tian when he noticed Zhao Deng's gaze. At the same time, he reminded Duan Ling Tian to bring him along when he went out in the future. All right. Upon hearing Gu Li's words, Duan Ling Tian felt warmth in his heart. Although he had not known Gu Li for long, due to their similar personalities, they had become good friends. The appearance of Feng Bu Yi, the deputy leader of the Mountain Shade Black Market, was merely a small interlude after the St. Martial secret zone closed. The group of Mystical Sky Mansion's disciples quickly shifted their attention away. In the Mystical Sky Mansion, news of the gains of the 30 people who entered the St. Martial secret zone began to spread like wildfire. Wang Feixian, the only person who obtained a high-grade divine ability, attracted a lot of attention. Who would have thought that Wang Feixian would obtain a high-grade divine ability? Ling Tian, whom I had high hopes for, didn't obtain a high-grade divine ability. Many Mystical Sky Mansion's disciples sighed emotionally. In their eyes, Wang Feixian was like a dark horse who had suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Moreover, she had even become the subordinate of the Heaven Palace's palace master. Her future achievements were limitless. After parting ways with Gu Li and returning to his residence, Duan Ling Tian didn't see Wang Feixian for several consecutive days. Wang Feixian also didn't come looking for him as often as before. It seems that she's been quite busy recently. Duan Ling Tian was not surprised by this. After all, Wang Feixian was no longer the person she used to be. Not only did she obtain the high-grade divine ability, the 1,000 Illusory Shadows, but she had also become the subordinate of the Heaven Palace's palace master. However, it's strange. I used to feel annoyed when she came looking for me in the past. Now that she doesn't come looking for me, I'm not used to it. Duan Ling Tian shook his head and returned to his room, preparing to enter closed-door cultivation for a period of time. He had rested enough for the past few days. After I'm done with my closed-door cultivation, I'll look for senior brother Gu Li and ask him to help me look for the materials to repair the 4th level of the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda. At that time, I'm sure they've already settled the matter in the Rising Sky Mansion. The reason he did not mention this matter to Gu Li was because he knew Gu Li was going to the Rising Sky Mansion with Guardian Gu. At that time, even the Vice Mansion Master, Zhao Ding, and his father, the other guardian of the Mystical Sky Mansion, would have to go as well. Moreover, the Mansion Master, Ming Qing, would personally go as well. They were not going to the Rising Sky Mansion as guests. Instead, they were going for the Devil Dao cultivation method that contained the soul congregation technique in the hands of the young Mansion Master of Rising Sky Mansion, Su Jing. Initially, I was thinking of killing Su Jing after he recovers to prevent future troubles. However, it seems like he won't be able to live until then. Duan Ling Tian thought to himself. He did not think Su Jing would be able to survive. As long as the Mystical Sky Mansion obtained the Devil Dao cultivation method from Su Jing, he would lose his value and would not be able to survive. As for whether the Mystical Sky Mansion would be able to obtain it or not, he had never considered this question. Even the Mansion Master, Ming Qing, had personally made a move. If he could not even take down a 4th-rate force, then the Mystical Sky Mansion would not deserve to be called a quasi-3rd-rate force. Perhaps, the Mystical Sky Mansion was not as powerful as the Mountain Shade Black Market or the Azure Cloud Mansion, but it was not something a mere 4th-rate force could compare to. Walao. After closing the door and entering the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda, Duan Ling Tian immediately looked for Hua Lao and asked him about the grade of the divine ability, the Golden Crow's Wings. What grade is the Golden Crow's Wings divine ability that you taught me earlier? How does it compare to the divine abilities in this world? Currently, other than the Golden Crow's Wings divine ability, he had also obtained many other divine abilities. Naturally, most of them were low-grade divine abilities. There were only 3 divine abilities that were not low-grade. The three divine abilities were the intermediate divine ability, the six harmonies golden body, the high-grade divine abilities, the elementary devouring tactic, and the otherworldly celestial. Among the three divine abilities, the elementary devouring tactic was, naturally, the most powerful. The second most powerful was the otherworldly celestial, followed by the six harmonies golden body. If I want to compare it with the divine abilities in this world, I must first understand the divine abilities here before I can compare them, Hualao said. Duan Lingtian nodded. He was about to tell Duan Lingtian about the elementary devouring tactic and the otherworldly celestial. However, as soon as he mentioned the elementary devouring tactic, Hualao could not help but stare at him and interrupt him. Are you sure the divine ability you obtained is the elementary devouring tactic? Yes. Duan Lingtian nodded. He did not know why Hualao had lost his composure. Could there be something wrong? Describe the elementary devouring tactic you obtained. Hualao took a deep breath before he asked slowly. Duan Lingtian suppressed the curiosity in his heart for the time being and explained everything he knew about the divine ability, the elementary devouring tactic, without leaving anything out. It's really the elementary devouring tactic. After listening to Duan Lingtian's description, Hualao remained silent for a moment. Then, his eyes lit up, startling Duan Lingtian. Hualao, why you seem to know about the elementary devouring tactic as well? The elementary devouring tactic is an amazing divine ability. Hualao looked at Duan Lingtian and said bluntly, in terms of grade, it's inferior to the golden crow's wings I taught you. However, the golden crow's wings that's superior to it is the golden crow's wings that's mastered by the golden crow clan. In terms of grade, the golden crow's wings that you mastered is, at most, on par with it. On par. Although Elder Hua was referring to the divine ability, the golden crow's wings, that he could master, Duan Lingtian was still shocked. Although he was not a three-legged golden crow and could not unleash the full power of the golden crow's wings, it was still a divine ability from the Devata realms. It was not something the divine abilities from the mundane realms could compare to. Yet now, he found out that in terms of quality, the elementary devour technique he obtained was actually not inferior to his golden crow's wings. How could he not be shocked by this? How did you master the elementary devouring tactic? Hualao asked curiously as he looked at Duan Lingtian. Upon hearing Hualao's question, Duan Lingtian immediately told Hualao about the abyssal swamp and his experience there. I didn't expect the elementary devouring tactic would be passed down in the mundane realm. The elementary devouring tactic is an amazing divine ability even in the Devata realms. There are only a handful of people in the Devata realms who have mastered it. Hualao sighed emotionally. What? Although Duan Lingtian already knew the elementary devouring tactic was amazing, he was still shocked when he heard Hualao's words. The elementary devouring tactic is an amazing divine ability in the Devata realms? Yes. Hualao nodded. The elementary devouring tactic is an extremely famous divine ability in the Devata realms. Apart from its amazing ability, it's also the foundation of the advanced devouring tactic. One must master the elementary devouring tactic before cultivating or mastering the advanced devouring tactic. The advanced devouring tactic? Duan Lingtian was dumbfounded. There's an advanced devouring tactic? Of course. Hualao nodded again. A hint of respect could be seen in his eyes as he said, the advanced devouring tactic is a top divine ability in the Devata realms. The owner of that divine ability is an overlord in a Devata realm. That powerhouse's strength is ranked in the top 3 among all the overlords in the Devata realms. Gasp. As soon as Hualao finished speaking, Duan Lingtian could not help but gasp. The advanced devouring tactic was a top divine ability in the Devata realms? The owner of the advanced devouring tactic was an overlord in a Devata realm? His strength was ranked in the top 3 among all the overlords in the Devata realms? Although there was not much information that Duan Lingtian needed to digest, every piece of information was shocking to him. They were all explosive information. Rumor has it that the elementary devouring tactic was derived from the advanced devouring tactic. The person who created the elementary devouring tactic is also that powerhouse. When that expert was mentioned, even Elder Hua could not help but feel deep respect for him. I didn't expect the elementary devouring tactic I obtained has such a shocking origin. Duan Lingtian sighed emotionally. However, it's all thanks to the Sun True origin that I obtained the elementary devouring tactic. I have to thank Hua Lao for this. If it wasn't for Hua Lao enlightening me and helping me produce the Sun True origin, I wouldn't have been able to pass the test in the Abyssal Swamp and obtain the divine ability, the elementary devouring tactic. Duan Lingtian looked at Hua Lao gratefully. The first few tests in the Abyssal Swamp were still manageable. As long as one was at the Eminent Saint stage or above, one should be able to pass them. However, even a powerhouse at the Divine Saint stage, Exemplary Saint stage, or Quintessential Saint stage might not be able to pass the last test, let alone a powerhouse at the Eminent Saint stage or above. Chapter 1796. Until now, when Duan Lingtian recalled the strength of the old man at the early refined saint stage during the final trial in the Abyssal Swamp, he could not help but feel a lingering fear in his heart. If it was an ordinary martial cultivator, he would not be a match for that old man even if his cultivation base was at the peak of the refined saint stage. Due to this reason, in his opinion, the Sun True origin that Hua Lao had given him was the main reason he was able to pass the final trial in the Abyssal Swamp and obtain the divine ability, the elementary devouring tactic. Upon hearing Duan Lingtian's words, Hua Lao smiled faintly. It's your good fortune to be able to obtain the 7 treasures exquisite pagoda and meet me. It's also your good fortune to be able to obtain the inheritance from the Sword Saint, Feng Qingyang. It's also your good fortune to be able to obtain the elementary devouring tactic this time. In the end, the Sun True origin has nothing to do with you being able to obtain the elementary devouring tactic. It's all because of your good fortune. Even Hua Lao could not help but sigh emotionally when he heard about Duan Lingtian's good fortune. Back then, even among the people he knew in the Devata realms, there were not many people who could compare to Duan Lingtian in terms of good fortune. Naturally, Hua Lao did not take the initiative to mention this to Duan Lingtian. In his opinion, even if he told Duan Lingtian about this, it would only harm Duan Lingtian. It would be fine if Duan Lingtian took his fortuitous encounter seriously. However, if he did not, he would slack off because of his fortuitous encounter. In the end, even if he had an extraordinary fortuitous encounter, he would not have any great achievements. Good fortune was a person's luck, but it could not be relied on too much. Hua Lao had lived for so many years, and he had seen many similar tragedies. Naturally, he did not want Duan Lingtian to make the same mistake. Duan Lingtian remained silent when he heard Hua Lao's words. When he thought about his journey, his luck was indeed not bad. Naturally, as someone whose soul had transmigrated from another world, Duan Lingtian was not complacent because of these fortuitous encounters. In his opinion, transmigrating from Earth to this world was the greatest fortuitous encounter he had in his life. Otherwise, he would have died long ago, let alone obtain the fortuitous encounter later on. Duan Lingtian had a good attitude in this regard. Naturally, Elder Hua was unaware of this. That was why he did not dare to tell Duan Lingtian about this. Elder Hua, after some time, I will start looking for materials to repair the 4th level of the 7 treasures exquisite pagoda. Duan Lingtian's cultivation and closed-door cultivation. When Duan Lingtian's next time, Guli, Duan Lingtian's realm, Duan Lingtian's sect returned, Duan came return. Duan Lingtian entered closed-door cultivation mainly to raise his cultivation base and further comprehend the profundity of the Supreme Sword Dao mental cultivation method, the Sovereign Heart Sword. Currently, he had only comprehended the 2nd stage of the Sovereign Heart Sword, the Sword Shadow Follow the Heart. The Sovereign Heart Sword had a total of 5 stages. In the future, he still had a very, very long way to go. While Duan Lingtian was cultivating, in the faraway Rising Sky Mansions district, the 4th-rate force, the Rising Sky Mansion, was facing a calamity. The Rising Sky Mansion was originally peaceful and quiet until their mansion master was killed by a mysterious powerhouse. Only then did it cause a huge commotion. The mansion master of the Rising Sky Mansion was the strongest powerhouse in the Rising Sky Mansion. In the entire Debussy subterranean, there were only a handful of powerhouses who could kill him without alerting others. Due to this reason, When the group of Rising Sky Mansion's high-ranking officials and disciples discovered that their mansion master was killed, they panicked. Subsequently, a few more high-ranking officials of the Rising Sky Mansion were killed. In the end, almost all of the high-ranking officials of the Rising Sky Mansion were killed. Even some of the outstanding disciples of the Rising Sky Mansion were killed. The people from the Rising Sky Mansion who were killed all had one thing in common. All of them knew that their young mansion master, Su Jing, had obtained a top Devil Dao cultivation method that contained the soul congregation technique. However, up until the moment they died, it did not cross their minds that the group of tiger-like powerhouses would come for the cultivation method that their young mansion master, Su Jing, cultivated. The people who killed them were none other than the group of high-ranking officials from the Mystical Sky Mansion. Among the people from the Mystical Sky Mansion who came, the weakest one was Gu Li. Naturally, Gu Li was only here to join in the fun. He followed his father, Gu Xiaiyun, and did not even have the chance to make a move from the beginning until the end. Apart from Gu Li, the weakest among the people from the Mystical Sky Mansion was a Vice Mansion Master. Due to this reason, they were able to annihilate the backbone of the Rising Sky Mansion in one fell swoop before most of the people from the Rising Sky Mansion could even react. Has everything been cleaned up? In the sky above the Rising Sky Mansion's estate, a group of people flew over from all directions. They were the group of high-ranking officials from the Mystical Sky Mansion. The person who spoke was none other than the Mansion Master of Mystical Sky Mansion, Meng Qing. Mansion Master, the east side has been cleaned up, Gu Xiaiyun, who was standing next to Gu Li, said. The west side has been cleaned up as well, the old man standing next to Zhao Deng said. This old man was Zhao Deng's father, the other guardian of the Mystical Sky Mansion. In the entire Mystical Sky Mansion, in terms of strength, he was on par with Gu Xiaiyun. He was only inferior to Meng Qing. Lord Mansion Master, the south side has been cleaned up. The four great palace masters of the Mystical Sky Mansion led by Zhu Luqi, the palace master of Heaven Palace, had also arrived. Zhu Luqi reported to Meng Qing respectfully. As for the other Vice Mansion Masters, they followed Meng Qing and were in charge of cleaning up the north side of the Rising Sky Mansion's estate. After all, this matter had to be done secretly. Since it was related to a top Devil Dao cultivation method, even the Mountain Shade Black Market and the Azure Cloud Mansion would be tempted. Very good. Meng Qing nodded in satisfaction. I've already moved Su Jing, the young mansion master of Rising Sky Mansion, to a secret place. Since we've cleaned up everything, we can return now. However, based on Su Jing's condition, if we use the soul-searching secret tactic now, I'm afraid his soul won't be able to withstand it. For this reason, we'll have to bring him back and imprison him for a period of time. Meng Qing added. Previously, he used the soul congregation technique, causing his soul to disperse. He'll need at least a few years to fully recover. However, if we want to use the soul-searching secret tactic on him, we'll have to wait for his soul to recover for another year or so. Otherwise, with his current condition, I'm afraid his soul will disperse completely before we can extract the Devil Dao cultivation method from his soul. Gu Xiaiyun nodded. Then, we'll wait for another year or so. I hope the Devil Dao cultivation method he obtained isn't a heartless one. In that case, with that cultivation method, our Mystical Sky Mansion's position in the WCI subterranean will definitely rise to a higher level. The eyes of the old man next to Zhao Deng, the other guardian of Mystical Sky Mansion, gleamed. When he reached the end of his sentence, his voice was filled with excitement. The moment his words left his mouth, even Meng Qing, the mansion master of Mystical Sky Mansion, lost his composure, let alone the others. In the WCI subterranean, the Mystical Sky Mansion was one of the quasi-third-rate forces. In the eyes of ordinary people, the Mystical Sky Mansion was one of the top forces in the WCI subterranean. However, only those who stood in the upper echelons of the WCI subterranean knew that although the Mystical Sky Mansion was a quasi-third-rate force, it was still lacking compared to the Mountain Shade Black Market and Azure Cloud Mansion that were also quasi-third-rate forces. Lord Mansion Master. At this moment, Qin Pingshong, the Palace Master of Yellow Palace, said hesitantly, breaking the good atmosphere. At once, most people, including Meng Qing, shifted their attention to Qin Pingshong. What's wrong? Meng Qing was puzzled. There might be a fish that slipped through the net. Qian Pingsheng smiled wryly. A fish that slipped through the net? The moment Qian Pingsheng's words left his mouth, everyone, including Zhu Luqi, the palace master of Earth Palace, and the palace master of Mystical Palace, could not help but have a change in expression. Didn't Palace Master Zhu say earlier that we've cleaned everything up? Before Meng Qing could speak, Zhao Jian had already looked at Qian Pingsheng and asked in an interrogative tone, Junior brother Qian, what's going on? Zhu Luqi looked at Qian Pingsheng. His expression was extremely grave as well. Qian Pingsheng did not mention this to him earlier. Senior brother Zhu, didn't Su Jing have a follower? We didn't notice that follower at all, right? Qian Pingsheng asked as he looked at Zhu Luqi. Su Jing's hunchbacked follower? Upon hearing this, Zhu Luqi's frown eased up. He's only Su Jing's follower. It's impossible for him to know that Su Jing has obtained the Devil Dao cultivation method, right? Moreover, when we were cleaning up, we didn't hear anyone mention that he knew about the Devil Dao cultivation method at all. Those people are all proud and arrogant. Perhaps they didn't care about Su Jing's follower at all. Qian Pingsheng shook his head. Initially, I didn't care about Su Jing's follower at all. However, the more I thought about it, the more I felt something was amiss. I heard that 1 year before the Rising Sky ranking battle began, Su Jing's follower was not in the Rising Sky Mansion's estate. It's suspected that he had left with Su Jing. If he left, then, before Qian Pingsheng could finish speaking, he was interrupted by Gu Xiaoyun, who had a grave expression on his face. A Rising Sky Mansion's disciple in the area that I'm in charge of mentioned that Su Jing's follower appeared at the Rising Sky ranking battle with Su Jing. After that, he even returned with Su Zin, the Grand Elder of Rising Sky Mansion. Apart from that Rising Sky Mansion's disciple, nobody mentioned him at all. I think they didn't care about him at all. After all, his position in the Rising Sky Mansion is extremely low. However, if he was by Su Jing's side when he left, he must have known about the Devil Dao cultivation method. When Gu Xiaoyun reached the end of his sentence, his expression turned grave. Someone in the area that I was in charge of also mentioned Su Jing's follower. However, he was in the area that Palace Master Zhu was in charge of, so I didn't ask about it. Initially, I thought Palace Master Zhu would deal with him. However, it did not cross my mind that he would be the fish that escaped the net. Zhao Jin looked at Zhu Luqi with a reprimanding expression on his face. What? Zhu Luqi's expression turned grave. It did not cross his mind that the only fish that escaped the net had escaped from under his watch. Lord Mansion Master, although we didn't know that Su Jing's follower knew about the Devil Dao cultivation method, we did look for him, but we couldn't find him. Chapter 1797. Qian Pingsheng's words were an excuse for Zhu Luqi and the other two palace masters. Previously, when they were searching the Rising Sky Mansion's estate, he was the only one among them who had purposely looked for Su Jing's follower in an attempt to find him. For this reason, Zhu Luqi and the other two palace masters had even advised him to forget about it if he did not manage to find him. An insignificant follower would definitely not know about the Devil Dao cultivation method. For this reason, the moment Qian Pingsheng's words left his mouth, Zhu Luqi, the palace master of Earth Palace, and the palace master of Mystical Palace looked at him gratefully. Since Su Jing's follower was not in the Rising Sky Mansion's estate, it could not be said that he had escaped from under their noses. Since he's not in the Rising Sky Mansion's estate, he must have no idea about what happened here. In that case, let's look for him ourselves and kill him to prevent future trouble. Meng Qing said as his eyes gleamed sharply. Due to the discovery of the fish that had escaped the net, the group of people who were about to return to the Mystical Sky Mansion had to put their trip on hold. Nobody had any complaints about this. All of them wanted to find the fish that had escaped the net and kill him to prevent future trouble. In fact, this was not a joke. If news of this spread out, it would undoubtedly be a huge blow to the Mystical Sky Mansion. If it was a heartless Devil Dao cultivation method, nobody would be worried that the Mystical Sky Mansion would risk universal condemnation to cultivate such a Devil Dao cultivation method. However, if the Devil Dao cultivation method was an ordinary Devil Dao cultivation method, it would definitely attract many people's attention. Naturally, In the Debussy subterranean, only quasi-third-rate forces would dare to covet the mystical sky mansion's cultivation method. The other forces would not be so bold. Instead of saying they did not have the courage, it was more accurate to say they did not have the strength. In the Debussy subterranean, the mystical sky mansion was not afraid of the other quasi-third-rate forces. However, the mystical sky mansion had to be wary of the mountain shade black market and the azure cloud mansion. If those two forces came together to ask for the devil path cultivation method, they really couldn't refuse. Apart from the mountain shade black market and the azure cloud mansion, the mystical sky mansion was even more wary of the powerhouses from the upper province of the Dao Marshal Saint Land. Although the powerhouses from the upper province rarely came to the lower province, no matter how few of them came, they would still be able to spread the news to the upper province. Even the experts of the upper province would be interested in the demonic Dao cultivation technique that contained the soul congregation technique. Due to this reason, the mystical sky mansion did not allow news about top devil Dao cultivation methods to spread. According to the Rising Sky Mansion's servant who knows Su Jing's sidekick, if Su Jing isn't in the Rising Sky Mansion's estate, he must have gone home to visit his family. Soon after, the group of mystical sky mansion's high-ranking officials confirmed this news. At the same time, they also found out where Su Jing's lackey's home was. It was in a small town called Camel Peak Town that was 1,000 miles south of the Rising Sky Mansion's estate. Camel Peak Town was a very special town. Almost all of the residents of Camel Peak Town were born with a hunchback. Su Jing's sidekick with a hunchback was a native of Camel Peak Town. Not only that, but he was also a genius martial cultivator that everyone in Camel Peak Town knew about. Naturally, he was only a genius martial cultivator in the eyes of the people in Camel Peak Town, since there were rarely any big shots in Camel Peak Town. You're here to look for Rongfan? Rongfan is the pride of our Camel Peak Town. He's also the person with the best reputation in the history of our Camel Peak Town. Do you know the Rising Sky Mansion? It's that fourth-rate force where Rongfan is currently staying. When the residents of Camel Peak Town heard that the people from the mystical Sky Mansion were here to look for Rongfan, all of them were very enthusiastic. Naturally, the people who appeared were not the group of mystical Sky Mansion's high-ranking officials. Instead, they were ordinary disciples from the mystical Sky Mansion's outposts nearby. Even if someone remembered their faces, nobody would recognize them. "Old man, I'm from the Rising Sky Mansion. I'm here this time because I have an urgent matter to look for Rongfan. Is he in town?" A young disciple from the mystical Sky Mansion asked an elderly resident of Camel Peak Town with an anxious expression on his face. It seemed as though he really had an urgent matter. "Rongfan has returned some time ago. It's said that he'll be staying at home for some time. His house is in the east of our Camel Peak Town. The biggest house is his house." When the elderly resident of Camel Peak Town mentioned Rongfan, his face was filled with pride. As someone from the fourth-rate force, the Rising Sky Mansion, Rongfan had always been the pride of the entire Camel Peak Town. The east. The few mystical Sky Mansion's disciples who came to Camel Peak Town found out where Rongfan's house was located one after another. After informing the mystical Sky Mansion's high-ranking officials in secret, they went to Rongfan's house. You're all Rising Sky Mansion's disciples?" After the few mystical Sky Mansion's disciples reported their fake identities, Rongfan's parents were very enthusiastic and welcomed them in. "Little Fan must have caused a lot of trouble for all of you. If he has done anything wrong in the past, both of us will apologize to all of you." Although Rongfan's parents had a cultivation base, they were only ordinary martial cultivators. When they found out that the few people in front of them were Rising Sky Mansion's disciples, they were instantly terrified. "Uncle, Auntie, there's no need to be nervous. We came to look for Rongfan because Lord Mansion Master asked us to. The young Mansion Master has already woken up, and we need him to hurry back and serve him." One of the mystical Sky Mansion's disciples said vigilantly. "The young Mansion Master has woken up?" Perhaps the outsiders thought that the young Mansion Master of the Rising Sky Mansion was dead. However, as Rongfan's parents, they naturally knew that the young Mansion Master their son served was not dead. In the entire Camel Peak Town, only they knew about this. Rongfan had also sternly reminded them not to spread this news. Due to this reason, when they heard the mystical Sky Mansion's disciple mention this matter, They were completely certain that the few people in front of them were Rising Sky Mansion's disciples. Little Fan went out early in the morning, and I reckon he'll only be back in the evening. As for where he went, we don't know either. Why don't all of you wait at home? Rong Fan's parents suggested. The few mystical Sky Mansion's disciples looked at each other. At the same time, they were reminded by the mystical Sky Mansion's high-ranking officials who were hiding in the dark, so they nodded in agreement. He went out. Soon after, the Mansion Master of Mystical Sky Mansion, Mengqing, and the others who were hiding outside the town also learned about this news. Quickly seal off the town. Also, search the town thoroughly. If you find any townsfolk, knock them out immediately so that they won't alert you when they see Rong Fan. Mengqing decisively gave his order. If they wanted to find Rong Fan, they had to be extremely meticulous. However, it was still too late for Mengqing to find out that Rong Fan was not in Camel Peak Town. Many townsfolk who had left earlier had already gone far away. Although the mystical Sky Mansion's high-ranking officials were searching the surroundings thoroughly, there were still one or two fish that escaped the net. Rong Fan, several hundred miles away from Camel Peak Town, a townsfolk with a high cultivation base saw Rong Fan and went up to him with a smile. Rong Hong? When Rong Fan saw him, he grinned. Why? Where are you going? I'm going to Southern Tablet City. You must have just returned from there, right? Rong Hong answered Rong Fan before he asked with a smile. Yes. Rong Fan nodded. I bought some things for my parents. Hee hee. Rong Fan, you're really doing well. Initially, I thought your position in the Rising Sky Mansion would drop day by day after the young mansion master of the Rising Sky Mansion was killed. I didn't expect someone from the Rising Sky Mansion would personally come to town to look for you. Rong Hong chuckled. What? When Rong Fan heard this, he could not help but be stunned. Someone from the Rising Sky Mansion came to look for me? When Rong Fan heard this news, his first thought was that it was impossible. Previously, when he was following the young mansion master in the Rising Sky Mansion, although his position was not high, it was not low either. Many people still flattered him. However, ever since the young mansion master's soul dissipated, most people thought he was dead. His days had not been easy, and those who flattered him no longer paid any attention to him. As for those who knew the young mansion master was still alive, they had a high status in the Rising Sky Mansion. Before the young mansion master died, they had already looked down on him. It was impossible for them to come to Camel Peak Town to look for him. Due to this reason, when he heard Rong Fan said someone from the Rising Sky Mansion came to Camel Peak Town to look for him, he found it hard to believe. Who are the people who came? Did he say anything? For some reason, Rong Fan was slightly flustered. Perhaps it was because he was flattered, or perhaps it was because of something else. He didn't say anything. However, it seems like 5 people came looking for you, Rong Hong replied.
Yes.
5 people? Horror dawned on Rong Fan's face. 5 people who claimed to be from the Rising Sky Mansion came looking for him? At this moment, if he still could not see that something was amiss, he would have lived for so many years in vain. Put aside the fact that most people thought the young mansion master of the Rising Sky Mansion was dead. Even if the young mansion master was still alive, it was impossible for so many Rising Sky Mansion's disciples to come looking for him. There must be something fishy about this. What? Is there something wrong? Rong Hong was stunned when he saw the horror on Rong Fan's face. When he regained his senses, he could not help but ask. Nothing. Rong Fan shook his head. Then, he looked at Rong Hong solemnly. Rong Hong, don't tell anyone that you've seen me today, especially those who claim to be from the Rising Sky Mansion. Remember. You must remember this. After he finished speaking, Rong Fan left without even turning his head back. Naturally, he did not return to Camel Peak Town. Instead, he made his way to the Rising Sky Mansion's estate because he felt something was amiss. When he arrived near the Rising Sky Mansion's estate, Rong Fan could feel the atmosphere in the Rising Sky Mansion's estate was a little off. Although he could not see anything from the outside, due to Rong Hong's warning earlier, he could not help but feel a little suspicious. Let's hide first. Rong Fan waited patiently outside the Rising Sky Mansion's estate. He needed to confirm something. After waiting for 3 days and 3 nights, an unfamiliar yet familiar figure appeared in Rong Fan's field of vision. Isn't this person Zhao Ji from the mystical sky mansion? Chapter 1798. Although Rong Fan was an insignificant person in the Rising Sky Mansion, the person he followed was the young mansion master of Rising Sky Mansion. Due to this reason, he had a wide range of contacts. About 5 years ago, when he followed Su Jing, the young mansion master of Rising Sky Mansion, out, he had met Zhaoji from the mystical Sky Mansion. According to his young mansion master, Zhaoji was the strongest person among the second generation in the mystical Sky Mansion. Due to this reason, he had memorized Zhaoji's appearance in his mind. That person was someone even his young mansion master did not dare to offend. Today, when he saw Zhaoji for the first time, he did not recognize him at all. All he felt was a sense of familiarity. After recalling for a while, he finally recognized Zhaoji. As for the two people following behind Zhaoji, he did not know them nor did he have any impression of them. According to the young mansion master, Zhaoji is the only son of the vice mansion master of mystical Sky Mansion, Zhao Deng. Moreover, his grandfather is one of the two great guardians of the mystical Sky Mansion. Rong Fan's heart jolted when he recalled what Su Jing had told him. The two great guardians of the mystical Sky Mansion were only second to the mansion master in the mystical Sky Mansion. They were not any weaker than the mansion master of Rising Sky Mansion. However, why is Zhao Ji here in our Rising Sky Mansion? Rong Fan was puzzled when he saw Zhao Ji making his way to the Rising Sky Mansion's estate. As far as he knew, the Rising Sky Mansion and the mystical Sky Mansion did not have any relationship at all. Why would Zhao Ji, the strongest person among the second generation in the mystical Sky Mansion, come to the Rising Sky Mansion? While Rong Fan was still puzzled, a figure appeared out of thin air in the direction of the Rising Sky Mansion's estate. It was a middle-aged man. His features were similar to Zhao Ji's. This person, could he be Zhao Ji's father? The vice mansion master of mystical Sky Mansion, Zhao Deng? It was no wonder Rong Fan would make such a guess. This middle-aged man looked very similar to Zhao Ji. The middle-aged man was indeed Zhao Deng. Jier, why are you here? Zhao Deng asked with a frown as he descended from the sky and appeared in front of Zhao Ji and his two brothers. Didn't I ask you to wait for news at home? There was a hint of reproach in Zhao Deng's tone. Father, I saw that you haven't returned to your family for a long time, so I came to take a look. How is it? Did you get the devil path cultivation method? Zhao Ji asked anxiously as he stared at Zhao Deng with burning eyes. That devil Dao cultivation method can only be obtained through the soul-searching secret tactic after Su Jing, the young mansion master of Rising Sky Mansion, has recovered slightly. Zhao Deng shook his head. When this matter is over, we'll bring him back to the mystical Sky Mansion. Yes. Zhao Ji nodded, and then he asked in confusion, Father, why did you take so long? It was precisely because Zhao Deng had not returned that Zhao Ji decided to come here on his own accord. He wanted to know the exact situation. He was also eager to obtain the Devil Dao cultivation method that the young mansion master of Rising Sky Mansion cultivated. Once he obtained it, his strength would increase rapidly. At that time, even Ling Tian would not be his match. He wanted to take back all the glory that Ling Tian had stolen from him. Something has happened. There's still no news about the lackey next to the young mansion master of Rising Sky Mansion. However, the prefecture lord and your grandfather have already gone to that lackey's house. They should be able to find him. Zhao Deng said, a lackey shouldn't know that Su Jing has cultivated a top Devil Dao cultivation method, right? Zhao Ji frowned. Aren't you making a mountain out of a molehill by going through so much trouble for a lackey? That lackey is not an ordinary lackey. When Su Jing obtained the Devil Dao cultivation method, he might have been beside him. At that time, he must have followed Su Jing to participate in the Rising Sky ranking battle as well. Zhao Deng said solemnly, due to this reason, if he doesn't die, our mystical Sky Mansion's operation this time will definitely cause trouble. With the Lord Mansion Master and Grandfather making a move, he'll definitely die. Zhao Ji said in a deep voice as his eyes gleamed coldly. Jier, you should go back. If Lord Mansion Master finds out that you're here, he'll definitely reprimand you. Zhao Deng said in a deep voice as he looked at Zhao Ji. Isn't Guli here as well? Zhao Ji frowned, slightly unconvinced. As Zhaoji's father, Zhao Deng, naturally, could hear the unwillingness in Zhaoji's voice. He immediately shook his head and said, "Don't be unconvinced about this matter. Apart from Ling Tian's contribution, Gu Li's contribution is even more important. Even if we put this aside, in terms of strength, you're still far from being Gu Li's match." When Zhao Deng reached the end of his sentence, a hint of disappointment could be heard in his tone. "If you're so free, why don't you cultivate in closed-door cultivation? Otherwise, let alone Gu Li, you'll never be a match for Ling Tian." Ling Tian. Zhao Ji's eyes were cold and filled with killing intent. "He won't live for long. Baiju, Heitu, bring him back," Zhao Deng ordered as he looked at the two people behind Zhao Ji. The two people who came with Zhao Ji were none other than the mystical Sky Mansion's disciples, Zhao Baiju and Zhao He Tuesday. They were also the two people who wanted to make a move on Duan Lingtian at the peak of the mystical Sky Mansion's Heaven Palace. At that time, due to Gu Li's appearance, they had dismissed the idea of making a move on Duan Lingtian. "Yes, master." Zhao Baiju and Zhao He Tu were Zhao Deng's direct disciples. When they heard Zhao Deng's order, they responded respectfully before looking at Zhao Ji in unison. "Little junior brother, listen to master. Let's go back." Although Zhao Ji wanted to stay and join in the fun, he had no choice but to leave unwillingly since Zhao Deng did not allow it. After Zhao Ji and the other two left, Zhao Deng also returned to the Rising Sky Mansion's estate. Something seems to be amiss. Rong Fan, who was hiding in the distance, could not hear what Zhao Deng and Zhao Ji were talking about because he was far away. However, he still felt something was amiss. This Zhao Deng is the Vice Mansion Master of Mystical Sky Mansion. Why did he come to our Rising Sky Mansion's estate? Rong Fan took a deep breath and made up his mind. To be safe, I can't return to the Rising Sky Mansion's estate for now. I'll go back and have a look after Zhao Deng has left. The moment Rong Fan thought of this, he found a secluded place nearby and hid. At the same time, he did not forget to monitor the route that one would have to take to return to the mystical Sky Mansion's estate. In Camel Peak Town, the group of high-ranking officials, led by Mansion Master Mengqing, had stayed there for an entire month. However, they still did not find any clues about Rong Fan. Rong Fan did not return that night as his parents had said. It was as though he had completely disappeared. Now, we're certain Rong Fan must have found out about something. I'm sure he's already suspicious of those few disciples' identities. Gu Xiaiyun, one of the two great guardians of Mystical Sky Mansion, said with a grave expression. That day, although our men had gone to chase after those who left Camel Peak Town, there were still 7 people we couldn't catch up to. Among those 7 people, someone must have seen Rong Fan and told him about what happened in Camel Peak Town. The other guardian, Zhao Jin, also said in a deep voice, "Guardians, both of you personally go and capture those 7 people. Ask them to swear on the lightning penalty oath to prove whether they've seen Rong Fan or not." Meng Qing said. He also felt that the key to this matter was most likely those 7 people. With Gu Xiaiyun and Zhao Jin making a move, the truth soon came to light. Lord Mansion Master. When Gu Xiaiyun and Zhao Jin returned, they brought a person with them. This person was none other than Rong Hong, who had met Rong Fan before. When Rong Fan was brought over, his entire body was trembling. The strength of the 2 old men next to him made him feel fear from the bottom of his heart and soul. Without any movement, just their aura alone was enough to suffocate him. If the 2 of them did not show mercy, he would have suffocated to death. Lord Mansion Master, we've brought him here. When he heard the 2 old men next to him calling the middle-aged man nearby Lord Mansion Master, his vision turned black and he almost fainted. Lord Mansion Master? Could it be that this person was the Mansion Master of Rising Sky Mansion? The Mansion Master of Rising Sky Mansion actually came here personally for Rong Fan? Damn Rong Fan, what kind of trouble did you get into? Even the Mansion Master of Rising Sky Mansion personally came here. That's right. When Rong Fan left after meeting me for the last time, it was obvious that there was something wrong with his expression. It seems like he was already thinking of running for his life at that time. No wonder I haven't seen him for almost a month. The moment Rong Hong thought of this, his expression turned grave. He had kept Rong Fan's secret, but he did not expect he would be dragged into this as well. Lord Mansion Master. When Rong Hong guessed the person in front of him was the mansion master of Rising Sky Mansion, he immediately kneeled on the ground as his entire body trembled. I didn't know Rong Fan had committed a crime. That's why I did such a foolish thing. At this moment, Meng Qing also learned about Rong Fan's departure from the two mystical Sky Mansion's guardians. He left in the direction of the Rising Sky Mansion's estate. Meng Qing looked at Rong Hong and asked for confirmation.
Yes.
Rong Hong quickly nodded like a chick pecking at rice. He did not dare to hesitate at all. When Zhao Jin saw Rong Hong had lost his value, he directly killed him with just a lift of his hand. Palace Master Qian, you'll lead 2 disciples to guard this place for now. If Rong Fan returns, you must kill him immediately. At the same time, Meng Qing looked at Qian Ping Sheng, the Palace Master of Yellow Palace, and ordered. Yes, Lord Mansion Master. Qian Ping Sheng accepted the order. As for the others, follow me back to the Rising Sky Mansion. However, I'm guessing Rong Fan did not return to the Rising Sky Mansion's estate. Otherwise, our people guarding the estate would have already reported about Rong Fan's matter. At this moment, even Meng Qing, the mansion master of Mystical Sky Mansion, had a grave expression on his face. Although the fish that had escaped the net was insignificant, if news of this spread out, the Mystical Sky Mansion would definitely face a lot of trouble. Duan Lingtian only found out about this after Guli returned. Does this mean all of you did not manage to find Rong Fan before you returned? Duan Lingtian asked. No. Chapter 1799. It seems like Rong Fan is quite smart. To think he didn't return to the Rising Sky Mansion's estate. However, I wonder if he's aware of what happened? Duan Lingtian said with a glint in his eyes. He had seen Rong Fan before. He was the hunchbacked young man who followed behind Su Jing, the young mansion master of Rising Sky Mansion, during the Rising Sky ranking battle. He was very inconspicuous. The reason Duan Lingtian remembered him was because he had a hunchback. As for his other features, he did not have any impression at all. I don't think he knows about it yet. Otherwise, the news would have spread before we came back. Guli said, currently, Zhao Deng and his son are personally guarding the Rising Sky Mansion's estate. Anyone who enters the Rising Sky Mansion's estate can only enter and not leave. For this reason, we don't have to worry about the news of the Rising Sky Mansion's high-ranking officials and elite disciples being killed spreading out for the time being. If news of this spreads out, the Rising Sky Mansion will be removed from the fourth-rate force. However, paper can't keep fire forever. What's Lord Mansion Master's plan in the future? Duan Lingtian asked curiously. According to Lord Mansion Master's plan, he'll let Lord Zhao Deng and his son guard the Rising Sky Mansion's estate for a period of time before sending someone to replace them. This will continue until the remnant soul of Su Jing, the young mansion master of Rising Sky Mansion, has recovered to the point where it can withstand the soul-searching secret tactic. Guli said, if the Devil Dao cultivation method that Su Jing cultivates is a heartless Devil Dao cultivation method, we'll remove the people there. In that case, even if news of this spreads out, people will only say that the Rising Sky Mansion is enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens. However, if the Devil Dao cultivation method is a normal Devil Dao cultivation method, we'll send someone to guard the Rising Sky Mansion's estate and Camel Peak Town until we find Rong Fan. Upon hearing Gu Li's words, although Duan Lingtian could understand Mansion Master Meng Qing's decision, he did not think highly of it. Even if the Devil Dao cultivation method was a normal Devil Dao cultivation method, and even if the Mystical Sky Mansion constantly sent someone to guard the Rising Sky Mansion's estate, something would still happen in the end. Paper can't keep fire forever. It would be fine if the people from the Mystical Sky Mansion imprisoned ordinary people. However, the problem was, as a fourth-rate force, the Rising Sky Mansion was also under the jurisdiction of a quasi-third-rate force. Sooner or later, someone from the quasi-third-rate force would go to the Rising Sky Mansion's estate. Once someone from a quasi-third-rate faction was killed or imprisoned, the entire faction would definitely be alarmed. At that time, the Mystical Sky Mansion might not be able to hide the fact that the core force of the Rising Sky Mansion was almost annihilated. Of course, putting aside that quasi-third-rate force, Duan Lingtian also felt that it wouldn't be long before the truth came out. After all, any normal person would be careless to guard and monitor a place at all times. No one could be absolutely safe. However, although Duan Lingtian did not think highly of Mansion Master Mingqing's actions, he did not say much. After all, this matter did not have much to do with him. As for the devil path cultivation method, whether it was a crazy devil path cultivation method or a normal devil path cultivation method, he had no interest in it. This was because he had never thought of cultivating a devil path cultivation method and becoming a devil cultivator. After I nurtured the Sun True Origin in my body, I haven't used the Devil Seal tablet yet. With the strength of the Sun True Origin that's comparable to the true origin of an early imminent Saint stage powerhouse, I should be able to kill all devil cultivators below the exemplary Saint stage if I use the Devil Seal tablet now. The moment Duan Lingtian thought of this, his emotions surged again. In fact, there were only a handful of powerhouses at the exemplary Saint stage and above, even in the mystical Sky Mansion. At the very least, according to the news he obtained, there were only 3 people who had entered the exemplary Saint stage in the mystical Sky Mansion. They were Mansion Master Mingqing and the 2 guardians of the mystical Sky Mansion, Gu Xiaiyun and Zhao Jin. Senior brother Gu Li, you're the son of Guardian Gu. You should know his current cultivation base, right? I heard Guardian Gu is an exemplary Saint stage powerhouse? When Duan Lingtian saw Gu Li from the corner of his eyes, he recalled Gu Li was the son of Guardian Gu. He must know about Guardian Gu's cultivation base.
Yes.
In the face of Duan Lingtian's question, Gu Li did not conceal anything and replied bluntly, my father's cultivation base has already broken through to the early exemplary Saint stage a long time ago. It's the same as Zhao Jin. Zhao Jin is also at the early exemplary Saint stage? Duan Lingtian was surprised. Yes. Gu Li nodded. According to my father, there are only 4 exemplary Saint stage powerhouses in the mystical Sky Mansion. Among them, Lord Mansion Master is the strongest. He and that old fellow from Zhao clan are the weakest. 4 exemplary Saint stage powerhouses? The 2 great guardians are the weakest? Duan Lingtian's eyes widened. Apart from the Mansion Master, there's another one. Make a guess. Gu Li smiled. When Duan Lingtian saw the mischievous smile in Gu Li's eyes, a thought flashed in his mind as he thought of someone. Don't tell me it's the guardian of the Heaven Palace's spirit pool? Senior brother Gu Li, your grandmaster? That's right. Gu Li nodded before he sighed. It's all because of Grandmaster's bad luck. Back then, he was severely injured, causing his cultivation base to stagnate. Otherwise, with his innate talent, he would have reached the quintessential Saint stage a long time ago. Grandmaster should have been wandering and cultivating in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land. However, due to his injuries, he had no choice but to stay in the lower province. Isn't the upper province a place where powerhouses at the eminent Saint stage and above can go? With senior strength, I'm afraid you can go to the upper province whenever you want, right? Duan Lingtian asked, puzzled. Indeed. Gu Li nodded before a wry smile appeared on his face. Although that's the case, Grandmaster is a genius in the martial Dao in his generation. He's unwilling to see his seniors and juniors who were weaker than him surpass him one by one. Due to his pride, he chose to stay in the lower province and be an inconspicuous guardian of the spirit pool. Duan Lingtian finally understood. If that was the case, it was understandable. Senior brother Gu Li, is there anyone at the quintessential Saint stage in the WCI subterranean? Duan Lingtian asked the question that had been bothering him. Yes. The moment Duan Lingtian's words left his mouth, Gu Li gave him a definite answer. Yes. However, as far as I know, there doesn't seem to be anyone at the quintessential Saint stage in the quasi-third-rate forces in the Dao Martial Saint Land. Logically speaking, although exemplary Saint stage powerhouses don't live forever, it shouldn't be a problem for them to live for 1 or 2,000 years. After living for so long, there must be someone who has broken through to the quintessential Saint stage, right? Duan Lingtian was even more puzzled. Indeed, there are, but they're not in the quasi-third-rate forces. Gu Li continued to say, apart from those reclusive powerhouses, the only quintessential Saint stage powerhouses in the WCI subterranean are the Watchers who guard the passage between the upper and lower province. Watchers? Duan Lingtian frowned. What's that? The Watchers are quintessential Saint stage powerhouses from first-rate forces in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land. Their duty is to watch over the lower province. Once a quintessential Saint stage powerhouse appears in the lower province, they must go to the upper province. If a quintessential Saint stage powerhouse dares to cause a commotion in the lower province, the Watchers will consider how to punish the quintessential Saint stage powerhouse based on the severity of the matter. Ghoulie said with a hint of dread on his face, "There was once a powerhouse at the peak of the exemplary Saint stage who had broken through to the quintessential Saint stage and wanted to unify the lower province with his powerful strength. Guess what happened to him in the end?" "What happened?" Duan Ling Tian asked with a tone that contained slight curiosity. If a quintessential Saint stage powerhouse was ambitious enough, they could unify the lower province. "He's dead. He was killed by the Watchers," Ghoulie said. "What?" Duan Ling Tian was shocked when he heard Ghoulie's words. A quintessential Saint stage powerhouse was killed? The one who killed him was the Watchers? According to the rule set by the first-rate forces in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land, once a quintessential Saint stage martial or Dao cultivator appears in the lower province, they must leave the lower province to avoid disturbing the balance in the lower province. Naturally, quintessential Saint stage powerhouses can choose to stay in the lower province, but they're not allowed to make a move. Once they make a move, the Watchers will kill them. Due to this reason, almost all of those who have broken through to the quintessential Saint stage in the Debussy subterranean would choose to leave. Although the lower province is good, it's useless if they can't make a move no matter how strong their cultivation base is. Only the upper province is their stage. Ghoulie said a lot in one breath, allowing Duan Lingtian to learn some things that he did not know in the past. These were not recorded in the books that he had read. The first-rate forces in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land are really meddlesome. Duan Lingtian sighed emotionally. It's said that the three great forces in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land, the three great sects, have jointly given the order. The first-rate forces in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land are only following orders. Ghoulie said, "The three great sects." Upon hearing Ghoulie's words, Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed immediately. Zoroastrianism was one of the three great sections. His fiancée was taken away by someone from Zoroastrianism. However, Duan Lingtian's agitated emotions were quickly suppressed by him, and he regained his composure. No wonder there's no quintessential Saint stage powerhouse in the quasi-third-rate forces in the Debussy subterranean. As it turns out, there's a Watcher watching over them to prevent quintessential Saint stage powerhouses from acting recklessly in the lower province. Duan Lingtian finally understood. Currently, the strongest people in the Debussy subterranean should be the leader of Mountain Shade Black Market and the Mansion Master of Azure Cloud Mansion, right? Duan Lingtian asked again.
Yes.
Ghoulie nodded. According to my father, the leader of Mountain Shade Black Market and the Mansion Master of Azure Cloud Mansion are both at the peak of the exemplary Saint stage. Most importantly, both of them are devil cultivators. Their strength is much stronger than ordinary martial and Dao cultivators with the same cultivation base. When they break through to the quintessential Saint stage, they won't be able to fight anymore. At that time, I'm afraid the Mountain Shade Black Market and the Azure Cloud Mansion will have a hard time, right? Duan Lingtian asked again. It's not that easy to break through to the quintessential Saint stage. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.